Looking for the hottest news out of the obstacle racing scene? Want to stay up to date on the freshest info, the latest podiums, and hear interviews with the who's who in OCR? Well, you've come to the wrong place. Well, some of that you'll find here. But we're not the media. This is not ORM, OCM, OCRM, ORCM. This is OCR Talk.
Hello, this is Jason Dupree.
And Anna Landry.
And you are listening to Season 4, Episode 6, something, of OCR Talk. This could be the last episode, at least for a while. And you're probably saying, wait, what? You just started this episode and you're going to drop that big news? Yes. I'll go ahead and explain it before we get into the episode, because we do have a very full episode for you. With all of the live streaming stuff that I've gotten into, I've found that between a full-time job, family and kids, other hobbies, one of these things needs more focus than the other. So I'm going to give up on the podcasting for now, and basically just, we're just gonna take a break. If we do more episodes later, then great, but if not, then that's fine as well. The live streaming stuff will get more of my attention, since I won't have to focus on, getting episodes out every once in a while, so that's good. And we're excited about that. But, this could be the last episode of OCR Talk you hear for quite some time. Anna, what do you think?
At least for a little while. I've also enjoyed getting to travel to these races and cover live coverage, because races are back and they're happening and it's exciting and it's fun. And yeah, it's just great to be out on a course again.
So with that being said, please, if you're here, you're thinking to yourself, man, I feel like I've not gotten enough OCR talk. Well, strap in, because this episode could be
Enya-worthy.
It could be Enya-worthy. God knows how long this is going to go. I thank you for all of those. If you heard what we just said and thought that's sad, or oh man, or how dare you, any of that kind of stuff. Thank you for listening. We don't have a huge listenership, especially in comparison to some of the other episodes. Some of the other podcasts, especially even inside of the OCR report. I know Obstacle Run Adventures gets more listeners than we do. Mm-hmm. I mean, in all honesty, our downloads per episode is somewhere between 200 and 400, which is awesome, but it's not. I mean, that's like I have that many friends, that could be just the people I know. So.
They've also been the most consistent podcast, though. So I feel like consistency is on their side.
That's true. And, we never set out to do this to have a giant fan base or anything. I mean, we didn't do it to have a fan base. We just did it because we wanted to have, just a different perspective than some of the other podcasts that were out at the time. And we were just talking about this the other day. When we started, that was 4 years ago. When we started, there was still only a small handful of podcasts. OCR podcasts, that is. I think Obstacle Running. That podcast. World's Toughest Podcast, Overcome and Run, Obstacle Running Adventures. Obstacle Dominator. Who else? Who else was around at the time?
Well, I mean, it's not OCR necessarily, but Rich Ryan still had his podcast then. That was more...
Yeah, it's more running related.
Performance-based.
I mean, and I know there was a couple other small... I'm a Spartan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he got started probably around the same time we did, right?
I don't know. I
or
do
maybe
remember,
just before.
I do remember listening to them before we started.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, there was, that's like, there might be one or two we're missing, but honestly, like, we can list that off the top of our heads, how many OCR podcasts there were at the time. And now, there's definitely several more and growing. It's like, it's always growing how many more they have. We have, dogs playing in here, so you might... They're very needy dogs, too, so you might hear them a little bit in the background. I apologize. And honestly, this is one of the first times that Anna and I have recorded an episode in person, outside of, like, getting dinner or lunch after a race and recording at the table, or, right before, the night before WTM. And one of the topics we're going to talk about is Ragnar, and that's why we're here together, because we just ran Ragnar. So we do have, it's been a few weeks since we've recorded, and we've wanted to record to cover and talk about a few different things. One being Hildervat. Shortly after Hildervat, I ran a small local OCR in Belton, Texas called Spartacus Dash. And then, actually, even before that, you ran a 12-hour trail race.
Yeah, it was probably the week after our last episode that I ran that 12-hour race.
Yeah, and I remember we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you did that, and then so we got those 3 races and Ragnar, which just happened.
In Kansas City. And Battle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Battle of the Lions, Kansas City.
That's 5. 5 races we're going to talk about in this episode. I don't know how long it'll be.
We've got a full agenda.
We are making this, worthy of being a, if you don't hear from us from a while, then you've hopefully gotten your fill and thought to yourself, man, I'm so glad they don't make any more episodes. So yeah, we're in Colorado right now. Now Anna lives here in Colorado, but I came up here for the race, and man, the elevation, it's something. Just walking up the steps to get into the
to the apartment. I told you to start hydrating 2 weeks ago.
I did. I mean, now we do have, before we get into everything, we do need to give away possibly our last can of Perform Elite. So we've got a spinner, and those that listen to us know I've always been the one to see the spinner, and then the whoever is on the call with me just gets to hear my excitement whenever the spinner's done.
But now I actually get to see it.
So we have several, and we got a spinner ready to go. We're going to see who gets this last,
and
possibly last can of Perform Elite.
Everybody that's messaged us or commented or whatever since our last episode.
Commented too? I don't know if I looked at all the comments.
I think I caught all the comments.
Okay.
We go.
We think we got them all. Let's hear it.
I think we got them all.
Who's it going to be? What? Mark Duplessis. There was it's not like there was 2 names on there.
Yeah, there was 10 names on the spinner board this time. So it was actually quite a deep field compared to what we've had in the past.
Congrats, Mark. You're about to get some Perform Elite. Speaking of Perform Elite, what is going on with them? Have you seen how they're running out of stock or something?
Yeah, so they're running out of stock. But I feel like that's par for the course for this whole COVID thing because we've had, like, just like you hear about, like, all the cars and stuff that are having problems with getting parts or chips or something. Yeah, I feel like maybe their distribution centers or their warehouses, their shipping centers, maybe we're getting a little behind. So I think maybe that's why.
Yeah, so it said that they could run out of stock here, and then so like if you don't get something here soon, you won't be able to order anymore until
August.
Which honestly isn't that far from now. But yeah, if you don't get like a order in like right now, I feel like they've got a few things that are on sale. Maybe they're trying to really go ahead and just clean that out.
Yep. I know some things are coming down the line, too, that are being tested, but maybe I don't know what the status of those are either, so.
What was the big news out of there recently? It's like they got officially recognized by something. You didn't see that?
No.
My apologies.
Bad ambassador.
I don't know if it was like... I don't think it was like FDA approved or anything. It was something.
Or maybe it was...
exciting for them.
I'm not sure.
Matt Mossman.
Which Matt Mossman, honestly, he's really accessible, even though you don't think he would be.
Yeah.
Like if you email him, it's on their website. Like it's actually him who emails you back and answers your questions, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So if you ever have any questions about their products, just email him.
Well, congrats, Mark. I don't know. I'm trying to think if he's got any right now.
Well, in either case, send me your new address so I can send you some Performally.
That's right. So we are, still part of the OCR report, and really that's really where this whole thing is coming from, because we're looking to do, the OCR Talk podcast doesn't have a huge reach. The YouTube page doesn't have a huge reach. Really, all of the live streaming we've done has been more for testing purposes to kind of get things going. So I did the first Battle of the Lions race live coverage by myself. So I did that one as OCR Talk. Mm-hmm. But since Hildervat went so well, Will Hicks is ready. Like, let's just go, any live coverage we do, let's put it on the OCR report, because that's where Will's been doing a great job of getting out race results, basically day of, like during the weekend, like every race that's happening, which there's quite a few of them going on nowadays. Mm-hmm. Every race that's happening he's getting the race results out, the maps beforehand, getting those on Facebook and Instagram, kind of just making all that information available to everybody, because even though, you've got Mud Run Guide and you've got even the event pages themselves, it's like sometimes it's hard to find the information you're looking for. Like, Spartan has never really been the best known, like, where's all the... I mean, that's why Jack Bauer does what he does, right? Because how do you go find who won such and such race, whenever, ever? So it's just...
And even Spartan, I think, don't they still outsource all that to Athlinks? All their results?
Yeah, so I mean, you can look there, but there's not just like a comprehensive place to go look other than what Jack's got.
And now even age group podiums.
Yeah, so...
at least for Spartan, anyway.
Right. So Will's, really trying out some cool stuff. And so the race results that are going out, he's got the money board going. That's really cool to keep track of who is making the most money out of race winnings for the year across different brands, not just for Spartan. And age group podiums have been going out too, which is really cool. It's so funny to think, we've got the top 3 of men and women, and we put those results out. Cool. Should we put out top 3 for every age group? Well, that's a lot of work, but what happens when you do that? We're going to talk about Spartacus Dash. I got 3rd at Spartacus Dash. So when he put those results out, it's like cool. It's like it was fun to see my name on there. It's obviously it's our own page basically, but it was neat to see it. So, and that's the way I think it is for everybody. It's just a great way to, even though it's just age group, like people enjoy seeing that, enjoy getting that recognition. So, be on the lookout for more age group recognition from the SCR report. All right. What was the first race? Hildervat.
Hildervat?
Hildervat. Hildervat was something. I'm sure at this point you've probably heard all about it. Maybe you've even watched the live stream coverage from us or from other sources. But it really was, and from my perspective, it was a great experience. It was just cool getting to get out there and do all that stuff. But the race itself was very unique. And I think this guy's idea of races in general are not crazy different. Like, I'm not talking about the one that happened, Battle on the Beach, Jacksonville. Just in general, I think he's just looking to do more like
Elite Invitationals?
No, not even that. Like, that happened, so that was great, but
I know that's what he talked about whenever he talked to Will.
Right, but the race itself, not, so the whole brand. Because every race isn't going to have that invitational. But, this one was on a beach in Jacksonville. The next one's going to be at a lake where you actually, are on the beach at the lake, at parts of it. So I think he's trying to keep it like this kind of beachy theme. But more so, I think it's supposed to be more destination. Like, Jacksonville is awesome because you could be in the hotel and walk out, do the race, and just go back to the pool or hang out and just. So this one, I don't know what the details are for that one, but I think it's supposed to be these races are going to be cool in a different way. So you're going to want to travel to these ones. So the idea of the first one was very different from what anybody's done so far. Multi-lap race, and not in the sense of we do multi-lap endurance races,
more like elimination style.
Well, even the regular elites, still it was just 5K, but multi-lap. So I don't know, whatever that equals out to. Basically 1 mile per lap.
Okay.
So while the pros had their own things, even the open and the regular elites still did a loop course, and you had a small loop of obstacles that was, I think, half a mile, and but then you had an out and back run that you did, and there was a bucket carry and a crawl at the end of the run. So in total, it was 1 mile per loop. And instead of continuing on to the finish line, you would go over a vertical cargo and loop back into the race where the start line is, and go from there. So very, very unique in that sense itself. But then, the pros, the pro invitational, where they had elimination style, pro wave, high stakes money. These people, it was a six men, 6 women. So pretty neat that he did that and pulled it off. I think, not everything was perfect. That was their second race that they've ever had.
Yeah.
So understandable. We've talked a ton about how Sid's races have never been perfect, but we still enjoy them. So that's okay. So we went, me and Will Hicks went and did live coverage. And this is where, you probably heard a lot about the race so far, but what you haven't heard about as much is what we did and what that experience was like. So it was pretty neat because at first, it was interesting more than anything. At first, we had the idea, there's a bar, so the beach, the race is on the beach. There's a hotel right, from where the beach is, where the race is. So there's a hotel right there, and then across the street from the hotel is a bar. or a restaurant / bar. And so we were able to work with them, and they were going to give us access to their AV room. And I could have swore I was like, so it'd be like a room we can sit in with like a table and like a monitor, and they're like, yeah. I mean, this is all like me going through Dan to talk to them. And then we get there, and the AV room is like barely enough room to stand in. And it's just server racks is really all it is.
So it was like a closet, basically.
Yeah. It was a closet and...
storage closet.
We could have done the coverage from there, but we would have just been sitting at one of the tables in the restaurant. Mm-hmm. But they didn't open till 11, so it's not like it would have been crowded or loud in there. But kind of funny, what we found out was that the internet speed in the hotel, the Wi-Fi in the hotel was actually better than what was in the
restaurant.
In the restaurant. So we ended up just doing the live stream from the hotel room, which was super cool because we got really lucky and got a room right there. And if for those that watched it, saw, we started it with me and Will standing on the balcony, so you could actually see the beach behind us, which was pretty cool. And now this, there were still hiccups and issues with this because it was basically our crew was me and him. He was doing commentary, and I was doing all the production side and commentary. And then camera-wise, we had got lucky and got Dan Woods, is the owner of Hildervat. He said that he had some camera people for us. And it kind of like the night before, we still didn't know who they were. And we were chatting with different people after the pro... whatever.
Pro wave?
No, the night before where they were...
the preview, I guess?
Yeah, where they were telling the pro, like going over the rules and
I gotcha.
Whatever they called that, I forget.
The briefing.
Yeah, there you go, pro briefing. So after that, we were chatting, just getting to rub elbows with the pros, which was pretty cool. But Will was talking to VJ, and VJ had a friend of his from like when they were in high school. And his friend was like, I was telling him what we were doing, and he was like, that sounds cool. I'd help if y'all need any help, let me know. I was like, we could use a camera person. So this guy, Jai, he ended up being our main rabbit because we only had one gimbal, so I gave it to him. And he did awesome, running all over the place for us. So we had him, and then we had, the first day we had one guy that was one of Dan's friends, and then Dan himself did some camera.
Nice.
I don't know why he chose to do that, but... So we only had three cameras the first day. The second day, he actually had more of his friends, and we had 5 cameras, I think. So we had Jai running around, and then we had one stationary by the start, and that last rig. We had one by the... we actually had one on a tripod, which is pretty cool, by the cargo slant cargo. Yeah. And then I think we had... Oh, that's right. We had one down by the bucket carry. And then one more... all these other ones didn't have gimbals. We had them stay still over by the 2 rigs. So it ended up being really cool. Now, one of the hiccups we had was that, for whatever reason, all the other cameras, for the most part, were like almost perfect quality and connection. Mm-hmm. But Jai's camera, we switched it out with mine, we switched it out with his phone, and for whatever reason, it had issues with the connection would just get weird. Mm-hmm. I was still trying to figure out what it was. Did I have too low of bit rate, or...
Were y'all recording on the lyrics?
Yeah.
Y'all are pulling it in.
Yeah, so we're using lyrics. But, like I said, I think he had an iPhone, and I had an Android phone, and then all the other people had iPhones, but theirs were fine, so I don't know. I'm still not entirely sure what it was, but...
Or maybe it was just location?
I mean, that's what I thought, is maybe the crowd congestion got to be too much, but like I said, the other cameras were fine. Mm-hmm. Which was nice because we were able to switch to those cameras even when Jai's was having problems. So, a lot of learned lessons from that. Probably the biggest takeaway is that it's better to be at the production machine rather than remoting into it, because the first day we were getting a lot of lag for like what we were seeing versus what we were saying. So we actually learned a trick to deal with that, basically using the calling system and making that what we were watching. So what we were watching was more up to date, more timely with what we were saying. So that was good, and we've learned, like if I'm at home, what I'm seeing is like if I'm talking about what I'm watching on the screen, it's perfectly timed because that's what's going straight to to YouTube. But so, and we'll talk more about live streaming when we talk about Battle Kansas City and kind of some of the things we did there and lessons learned. But yeah, Hildervat was really cool, and getting to travel to work a race is definitely neat, different, as you know. You don't have those pre-race jitters of competition and all that stuff.
You have to wake up early and eat the right breakfast and drink your pre-workout at the right time, and yeah.
Instead, you just stay up late going over all the technical details about everything, and
all the logistics, and
and then you
all the little details. And
wake up every hour because you've been dreaming that. That you got started late and the video feed is not working. So yeah, I know I told you this, but I basically had the same dreams that I had the night before Spartan San Antonio, where it's like just all night long I'm dreaming that technical wise things are messing up and I'm having trouble getting it to work, and of course San Antonio the first day was pretty much like that. But anyway, yeah, Hildervat was it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing it. The pros, I think they were there for the money and they took it in stride with all the issues that arise, and there weren't a ton. It was just a few, but it was good. It was a good time. It was cool to see, even though we had, who was, Ray Omar.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. He replaced,
Puerto Rico.
He replaced
Puerto Rico.
Aaron Newell. Because Aaron Newell had gotten hurt. And obviously it was, it was basically pretty much obvious that, he wasn't the caliber of the other pros because he did come in last place, but it was really cool to see.
But he kept up though.
Well, it was awesome to see. I think his level of effort. Like he was so excited to be there. Like it was. I think a lot of people were more proud of him and how he handled it than some of the other people. Yeah,
because that's a lot of pressure to be put in such a small field of elites where everybody knows all the people you're competing against. But nobody knows you. And everybody's like, who's this guy?
Yeah, like think Ryan Woods and Robert Killian. I mean, these are guys that have won national series and national championships, or world championships even.
Yeah.
And to think that they weren't at the top. So, like, it's so crazy because you look at them and it's like you expect this level of something. But with Ray, there were no expectations. So it really was like, I think more people were proud of him.
There was like some level of curiosity, and they were just proud.
Yeah,
to see him compete and hold his own against an elite field,
and especially the pro relay was really cool to see how fast he went out because it was such a short lap. There was less for him to less time for him to fall behind, I guess. So he went out really hard and showed that skill that he has. That's good. What was next? What
was after Hildervat?
Your 12-hour.
Oh, yeah. That was interesting. So I did a 12-hour trail race, and it's this local trail running company. I love the race director and his assistant race director. I think it's like his fiance or his wife or something. But anyway, he's just super laid back, and like he's just all about like the sport and the community of running. And so he held a 12-hour and a 24-hour, which looked very different as far as the events go. So I signed up for the 12-hour, and it was up near like Pikes Peak region area. And so what you had to do whenever you checked in was you would check in, and then you would reach in this bucket and you would grab a ball. And there was several different colored balls, and they would correspond to the loop that you had to run. So
how many loops?
I think there was 4. There was a green, red, blue, and purple loop, I want to say. And so just like Ragnar, but you had to randomly draw what loop you were going to draw next, or what loop you were going to run next. And the green loop was the shortest loop, which, funny enough, was also like my least favorite. So just like Ragnar, because the green loop was actually like shorter than Ragnar's green loop, but it was in a completely different region. But their green loop was 2.8 miles, and it had just under 600 feet of gain in 2.8 miles.
So for comparison, Ragnar's green loop had what, 800? No, 500.
570
in 3.8 miles.
Yeah. So so their green loop, I was super happy because I drew a green loop.
Did it only go up?
Yes.
It never came down?
No, it started off going down. So it was like the exact opposite. Yeah, it was the exact opposite of Ragnar in that, like, the start finish, you would run a slight downhill whenever you were running out to whatever loop.
Oh.
And then they had like the colored ribbons that were the color that you were supposed to follow. Huh. And then at the end of the green loop was just this straight like death march up. And it was terrible because no matter what, to get back to the start finish, you had to climb up. So that was interesting.
It was steeper coming back up than it was going down to it the first time?
No, it's the same. So all the loops basically went back onto like this little stretch going back up to the start finish.
But that was like, the death march?
No. Okay. There was another one coming up because the green loop you ran down. It's like this really pretty, nice single track down into this valley, and then you have to like climb your way out of the valley. And then climb even further back up to the start finish.
Is it switchbacks or is it more straight up?
The green loop was more straight down and then straight back up. The middle distance loops, like the blue loop and the green loop, not the green loop, the blue loop and maybe there was a yellow loop too. I can't remember. Those were around 4.5 miles. Those were more like switchbacky and stuff. So, those were quite challenging as well, but it was more like you got breaks in between the climbs. So at least there was that. But it was my first race close to 10,000 feet of elevation, and I feel like I struggled with it because I felt like I was having like stomach issues the whole time, like nausea.
You said it was at Pikes Peak? Or just in that area?
Adjacent.
Okay.
So Pikes Peak, like we had a view of Pikes Peak the whole race.
Cool.
And we started and it was all foggy. And it was cold, and we thought it was going to be sunny and 60 degrees. And then, like, literally 3 minutes before the start, the skies cleared, and the sun came out, and everybody started shedding their layers. Like, 3 minutes before the start. And, like, this is such, like, a grassroots, like, trail running series that the the race director, like, does his little start line announcements, and he's like, okay, go. And that's the start, you know, like go, like start. And everybody's like just kind of looking around for a second, and then we all go. So the 12 hour was just us like drawing colored ping pong balls out of this bucket. Oh, there was also a black ball, which was interesting because this reminded me of World's Toughest. Because if you drew a black ball, you had the option of doing a challenge. And if you were successful at doing the challenge, then you got to pick the color of your next loop. So they had Operation set up. The game. Yeah. They had Operation set up. What's that one where you have to put the shapes into their corresponding things before they all like, I don't know, I can't remember the name.
No?
Maybe. I don't know.
Trouble is like, sorry. Shoot.
I can't remember the name.
Yeah.
But you have to put like the shapes into the corresponding holes. Yeah, and there's a timer. And then if the timer runs out, then they all come out of their holes or whatever.
Damn,
and then they had Jenga.
I'm hearing the commercial in my head, and I can't quite.
And then they had Jenga, and they had a version of.
Wait, what was the challenge for Jenga? Just like to get one.
You had to like pull 5 things without it toppling over, which not very many people pulled that. But there was also beer pong set up, and yeah,
Did you have to drink any?
No, you just had to you were given. There was several cups set up, and you were given like several balls.
Okay.
Enough to go in each cup, and you had to like knock out each cup. And if you couldn't knock out each cup, then you lost the challenge, and you
just drew randomly.
Yeah. And what else? Oh, they made a gallery of. There was one. They had a table of judges that were sitting there at the table where you drew the balls, and they were keeping the time, and they were pretty much like race judges or race directors or whatever. And so they had this one challenge where you had to draw them at the table. So you had to draw caricatures of them.
That's crazy. Yeah. On what? Like on a whiteboard?
On like a piece of cardboard that they had randomly. So
that's pretty wild.
Yeah. So there was that. I never drew a black ball, so I never got to
Did you get to see any of the drawings?
Yes, they put them on display after people drew them. So yeah, that was like super interesting. So that was a 12-hour, but the 24-hour people, there was only 9 of them that signed up for the 24-hour, and they were all like legit trail runners, and they had to draw a corresponding pace ball. So how the 24-hour was different was that the race director pulled their loop and their pace. So they didn't get to choose what loop they were drawing next. Basically, at the beginning of the race, for the 24-hour people, he drew, like, their first loop was a red loop, and they had to...
So it was one pull. Yeah. Where you guys, it was everybody drew individually.
Right.
Okay.
But for the 24-hour people, the race director pulled their loops. So I think for the first loop, they had to finish the red loop, which was like a 7-mile loop, and they had to finish it. The average pace had to be like 17 to 17:30. So they basically had to finish before a certain time because the 17:30 pace was their cutoff.
That is funny that they did it pace-wise instead of just saying you got to be done in this amount of time. Yeah,
because I think originally they thought that more people would sign up maybe for the 24-hour. So they were just going to run it just like the 12-hour. But then I think logistically and personnel-wise, like, you can't keep up with that many runners and keep track of that many paces to make sure everybody's hitting their paces.
Yeah.
So it's just easier.
About 9 24-hour people? How many 12-hour?
There was like 50-something 12-hour people.
Yeah, that would be a lot.
Yeah. So, so there was only one man standing after the 24-hour.
Wow.
And he was actually able to finish the 24-hour, and he finished like 88 something miles. And I mean, these loops were not easy.
All right, so I guess elevation wise.
Mm-hmm. Well, just even just like incline wise too, just the courses that they picked.
Obviously, we know, just straight up trail running wise, we know people can do some pretty crazy. Any idea what the world record for 24-hour running is?
On a trail?
Well, just wherever, just like as a comparison.
Or mile wise?
Yeah, just mile wise.
Because I know there's like several records that stand for like most miles completed in 24 hours, and I think it's like 130 something. I don't know.
Okay.
In 24 hours?
Yeah.
But that's also like on a track.
Sure.
So.
And this had, obviously, like, especially with that green, had some pretty good elevation.
The green had some good elevation. The red, even though it was 7 miles and it had the most elevation gain, I heard was everybody's favorite, was pretty much the general consensus, because it had the better views, but it also, the elevation was like 1,700 something feet of elevation gain.
Over how long?
Over 7.3 miles, I think, or 7.7.
So that does sound more than, I mean, in comparison wise, we'll talk about Ragnar. Ragnar was 6.3 or 5.
Something like that, yeah.
And it was only 1,100 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about adding another mile, but an extra 500 feet of elevation over that mile.
Yeah. Yeah. So this place was Mueller State Park. And it, like I said, it's Pikes Peak adjacent. But if you ever want to check it out, their trails are really good. It was like gravel trails, so they're like very well groomed, not like super rocky, not super technical. Very well groomed, very well cared for. And yeah, so I ended up over 12 hours. Like I said, I was dealing with like a lot of weird like GI issues that I've never encountered before. Like I was even texting Kathleen during my race, and I was like, my hands are swelling. I've never had this before, and like I just feel nauseous. I don't know if it's the elevation and just like trying to push myself at elevation. And she just kept telling me to hydrate and everything, and I kept trying to just hydrate with just water, and it wasn't really working. And so like
Kathleen, who we'll come back to because she ran Ragnar with us. Yeah. So you'll hear more about her. So is it better to, I mean, you're saying you're having what you were thinking of being hydration issues. Mm-hmm. Is it better to stick to just straight water or go with something with? So. Like, why wouldn't you use something with electrolytes, though?
Because I think whenever, compared to running up here and compared to running in the south, like, I just used to sweat. Like, how it's like, you just walk out your door and you're already sweating and you're already drenched. But, like, here, you don't really notice that you're sweating. And you may not even sweat that much, but just being at elevation, you get dehydrated so much quicker. Like, I think they said at, like, a mile high, you lose, like, I don't know, like a liter of water or something like that. I don't know. Something crazy like that. So I think just the dehydration factor with just hydrating with water is sufficient. Because I will say that this past weekend, I hydrated with strictly water most of the time. And I felt better than I did at that 12-hour race.
Okay, so I did probably more so electrolytes versus just straight water. Mm-hmm. Do you know if that's adverse to doing just straight water? Or
I don't think so. I mean, I think, honestly, I think it's just...
Can you put too much electrolytes in your body?
Yes. Yes. Because that's what I thought was happening whenever I started swelling. I thought that's what was happening, was that, like, I was just taking in too many electrolytes, maybe too much salt, and that's why I was swelling. So I stopped the water, or I stopped the electrolytes, and I think it was just that it was too late. And I also feel like my vest had a little bit of something to do with that. Because I tried to treat this 12-hour race like we do toughest. Like, you just get in, dry your ball, get out before you can ever even think of sitting down. And because my mentality was like, if I draw a ball right when I finish, then I know which loop I'm going on. So if I just restock on whatever fuel, whatever energy stuffs I need, then
oh,
that's the neighbor's dogs. Then if I get back out on the trail, then it's too late for me to be like, oh, maybe I should stop. Like maybe I shouldn't go out for another lap. But luckily I was able to hook up with this one couple and do like a nice like casual walking loop with them. And did a little bit of jogging with them, and even whenever I was like hiking and just doing a little bit of light jogging with them, I was still having like really bad nausea issues. So that's why I called it early, because my stomach was just being crazy.
So how long did you go?
I went I think I stopped 3 hours short. Yeah, 3 hours short, because I figured at the end of that loop that I had finished with them, if I drew a red or a purple loop, those were both 7 to 7.5 miles long. And even if I had just hiked those loops, then I probably wouldn't have made cutoff. So if you didn't finish your loop before cutoff, then that loop doesn't count. So I wasn't willing to risk like being nauseous and hiking 7.5 miles and it not counting towards my total mileage. So, I mean, I ended with less than a 50K, which was like not quite where I wanted to be. But at the same time, I felt like I learned a lot about like how I needed to hydrate and fuel and better prepare myself for higher elevation races. So yeah.
Interesting.
But I really like, and the 50 miler that I have lined up in July is with the same running series. So I know their races are not easy.
How was the temperature for that race? You said it was cloudy at first, but then got sunny.
Yeah.
Before y'all started.
It was beautiful. It probably stayed. This was end of May, I think, or towards the end of May, and whenever the sun came out, it wasn't the trail itself was very shaded. There was like it was basically a forest, so we had a lot of shaded areas.
That's nice.
Yeah, so we had a lot of cover, and it rained. It wanted, like, up in the mountains, it's weird because you can almost see the weather forming in the clouds. So you can see, like, a storm coming. And I really thought that we were about to get hit with, like, a big rainstorm, which it did sprinkle a little bit, and it did get cold for a little bit, but it wasn't bad. Like, it wasn't... It actually wasn't as bad as this past weekend at Ragnar, where I was, like, wrapped up in my dry robe and... like shivering.
So yeah, y'all. What time did y'all start?
We started at 8 a.m.
Do you remember what the temperature was throughout the day?
It was like 60s, 70s.
Okay.
But like low 70s and higher humidity because we had a higher chance of rain that day, and we could see like the cloud storms forming.
Yeah. Of course we'll talk more about Ragnar, but the crazy thing to me is the difference of how the cold and the heat feel here versus other places. Like, when I think the temperature is 70 degrees in Louisiana versus in Texas versus honestly anywhere in the east side of the country.
Yeah.
Versus how it feels here. 70 degrees with sun is crazy hot here.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Where we were in Aspen, I honestly feel like a lot of it, I mean, we were exposed. Like, we didn't have any cover at all.
Yeah.
And so to be up this high and have no cover is probably why I'm sunburnt. It's probably like the third time I've been sunburnt in my life.
So for that race, you said there was more coverage.
Yes.
A
lot more.
So the temperature, I guess if the temperature was, nice, it probably wasn't as bad.
Yeah. And honestly, like the downhills, I really wanted to run the downhills. And every time I tried to run the downhills, I would get really, like, nauseous. It was weird. Like, I'd never experienced that before. I know we've talked about it.
Because I've dealt with it.
Yeah, you dealt with it a lot. And then I think in our group chat, Will was just talking about, like, have you ever felt like you were going to puke while you were running? And I'm like, I've literally never felt that. But then I was like, okay, I can relate to that now.
Yeah.
I can totally relate. Yeah. Totally relate to it. And probably just going to be better at hydration. So that was my lesson learned from that. And I met, like, a lot of really cool people, and I got to talk with the race director and his crew, and, I mean, they're, like, a really, really awesome crew. So, like, I think they have races in Colorado, California, and Arkansas. So, just random, I don't know about the Arkansas thing, but just randomly, I think they just, like, acquired it from another race director over there. But it's Human Potential Running Series, and I highly recommend their events because they're pretty awesome to work with.
I mean, I never really thought about it before, but Arkansas seems like it'd be a great place to have some races.
Yeah.
I mean, Arkansas, although it's it's not the Rockies, it's those Ozark Mountains are nice.
Yeah, there's still some mountainous regions over there.
I have gotten to run. I've done a lot of camping in Arkansas, but I have. Did some running while I was working out there at one point. So there's some good stuff out there.
Yeah.
Huh. So hydration wise, I would love to know more about it. What I've experienced so far, obviously with my hydration issues, is I feel like I personally have to just do it more. Like it's simply I don't do it enough.
Yeah.
And then I get myself in trouble.
Yeah.
So, you're talking about. I mean, there's hydration, like the fluid itself, but then there's also electrolytes that help maintain the hydration.
Right.
Like
your water retention.
Yeah. Do you know any of the science behind this?
Yeah. So, the good rule of thumb that I know a lot of my doctors follow and a lot of my nurse friends follow is, like, good rule of thumb for hydration is your body weight in kilograms,
But still, you're talking about amount of fluid, right? Like you're about to say,
right. If I'm like 59 kilos, then that should be the amount of fluid ounces that I take in during the day just to maintain.
Just normal daily activity.
Right. Just to maintain. So that's like almost 60 ounces of fluid, which is roughly like, we all used to hear about like the 8 ounce glasses of water.
8 cups a day.
Yeah. Which is about what?
Close to that.
Yeah. So that would be like 64 fluid ounces of water a day, which some people might need more because their body mass is higher, but
and a gallon is what, like 128 ounces?
I think so.
So that's really double what you necessarily need.
Right. And then they always say, look at your pee. Which could be affected by a number of factors. Like if you're taking vitamins will turn your pee bright yellow. And you're like, oh, I'm dehydrated. But no, it's just the vitamins. And yeah, and then if you're an athlete and you work out a lot, then obviously that hydration intake has to be a lot higher because you're sweating a lot more.
Yeah.
But then so I've heard a few things about like sweat tests and how much you sweat during exercise to like get sweat tested, but like not everybody has time for that. So
all right, so what does that do? So if you get sweat tested, what do they do in those?
It's like essentially seeing how much sodium you're using or you're expelling during exercise, so that like you know what your sweat rate is.
Do you know how do they test it?
I have no clue.
I need
honestly.
to do this.
I have no clue. I think it's like an expensive test, and it's like one of those things like pro athletes obviously have access to it because that's what they do for a living. Just like VO2 max testing, like legit VO2 max testing. So I don't, I just feel like if you know you're going to be racing or working out in a really hot area of the United States and you know you're going to be sweating a lot, then you probably have to mix in some electrolytes with your hydration, especially if you're having cramping issues, or maybe even GI issues. And I think that's part of the reason why, like, you have to test out everything before you race. Because you have to know what works for you and what doesn't, and what might relieve your cramping and what doesn't.
So weird. One of the things I've dealt with whenever I get dehydrated is I honestly feel like I don't want to eat or drink more.
Same.
Like my stomach gets so weird. It's like
it doesn't know what it wants.
Right. So, and we've had times at World's Toughest where it's like I need to eat food, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
And I think what I've found is that I have better luck trying to eat something that's not sweet. Because it's like almost like the sweet will. My body's telling me no, don't that's going to make it worse. Like just even the thought of eating, a cookie or something like that just makes me want to be sick.
Yeah.
But eating salty stuff seems to do better. So even thinking like, Javier eating pizza
and Red Bull.
Yeah. So like the pizza is a lot of sodium and not so much sweet stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems like you get dehydrated. It's not simply just, and I experienced this for Ragnar this weekend. It's not just simply you're dehydrated, but what else does your body need?
Right.
And there are possibly some other factors there that, if you're just simply trying to eat goose through an entire race, maybe that's not what your body needs. Maybe you need something more substantial. I know I for short, fast races, I like to have my stomach empty because if I've kind of got a full stomach and I run hard,
does it feel heavier?
It feels heavier. My stomach will like burn. It almost feels like it's hot. Like,
yeah,
it's a weird feeling, but it drags me down a lot.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to go any longer than 30, 45 minutes. Shoot, I don't even want to think about running that hard at 45 minutes. But, going any longer than that, I rather just think endurance. You got to take it slower, and, your body needs something in it. So.
Yeah, I think beyond 30 or 45 minutes, I'm always taking something. Whether it's like just a swig of water, or it's a swig of water with like Sustainably or some Noon in it, or I've kind of gotten away from the goos just because for whatever reason they just stopped working out for me. They just they didn't sit on my stomach well. They just the whole consistency in the mouth thing, it just made it took me longer to get it down. And whenever you're running a race and you're smacking your mouth trying to get down a goo, it just didn't work out for me, and that's why I like the chews, I think. I mean, they're the same concept, right? Except they're in like gummy form.
Yeah.
And from Kirk and Bracken's podcast, I was listening and just chewing on one and like holding it in my cheek, even though it's probably not best for my dental health.
Sure.
Whatever. Just holding it, in there, it makes it last longer, and it's not like stuck in there like a big ball of syrup in my mouth,
Miles Keller always said to do that, to just stick one in there and let it like a slow drip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, anything beyond 30 or 45 minutes, I always feel like I need to be taking in something. And I always, before I moved up here, and started having these weird GI issues with longer races, I always like went by the principle of like, if I come up on an aid station or I come in the pit and like that's what I want, that's like my body's way of telling me that's what it needs. Like if my body is telling me like to grab a handful of potato chips, like maybe it needs simple carbs and salt. Or if like I want something sweet, then maybe that's what my body's needing. But I'm like having to relearn all of this all over again, it feels like.
I wish it felt that simple to think because that's my trouble, is that you get into a point to where it's like your body doesn't want anything.
Exactly, yeah.
What is that? Why does your body want to reject everything when it's in trouble?
Probably because it's that fight or flight like response of the body, like it doesn't know what you're doing to it whenever you're involved in these long endurance efforts. So your body's like, what the heck are you doing to me? I'm going to conserve all my energy and like conserve my resources and try to self-preserve. And I think maybe that's why like it's your body's way of trying to tell you to stop whatever you're doing because it's hurting or you're suffering, and it's like that governor that's in your brain that's telling you to stop, but then you want to keep going and push past it so you can like raise that limiter again just a little bit more.
Yeah, even this weekend I felt like the more I ate, the better off I was.
Yeah. Even if you didn't want it, like even if it was just like something simple, like those Uncrustables or those cherry pies, like you had.
Yeah, the cherry. I got way more junk food than I should have gotten instead of getting some good substantial stuff. But the cherry pies actually worked really good.
That's why I always go for the Uncrustables, because at least it has like peanut butter in it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so you did the 12-hour race. You got a little sick. Had some trouble with it.
But fueling lessons. I know we've alluded to Ragnar, but before we get into that, what was before that?
The next race was Spartacus Dash.
Yeah.
In Belton, Texas. This is a race that me and my family have done since we moved up to Texas. They've had it for 10 years, I think.
Wow.
I want to say this is their 10th year, which is crazy to think that they started, basically when Spartan started. Mm-hmm. But it's a charity race that a company, it's ASCO Construction Equipment, maybe. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's people within their company decided, let's do a charity race. Mm-hmm. And so they raise money for whatever charity they decide on that year. And they've been doing it, all these years, and they keep making it better and better. So we found out about it, 5 years ago, and it's been, we've gone every year, and it's really cool because I'll run, it's a short race. It's usually like 2.8 miles, somewhere in there. And it's in this local park in there. And the park, it's cool because there's like a spot that's a park, but then there's a river that flows down through there. And the park, there's different pieces of the park all the way along. So there's sidewalk trails through there. And the race runs all the way along that river. and then you go at the far end over this bridge, and then there's a spot where you usually do a water slide and some mud pits, and then you come back over the bridge, and like basically it's basically an out and back. But depending on the water level, it's always been you go through the river a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
And I say river, it's probably some people would more consider it a creek than anything, but but yeah, it's a really fun race. They've really stepped up the obstacles every year. They'll always either add one or just change things up. So it's really neat to see how they've progressed over the years and changed. And while there are some people running competitively, it's mostly just for people to get out there and have a good time. So I'll go run the first wave competitively and then run with my family afterwards. Mm-hmm. So it's a great weekend. Like, we've loved doing that each year for, like, let's get a hotel or an Airbnb and just make a fun weekend out of it.
What area of Texas is it?
It's just south of Waco.
Okay.
So not quite to Austin.
Mm-hmm.
From Dallas. It's from Fort Worth. It was about 2.5 hours. Yeah, so pretty neat race, really cool. They've done a good job with it every year. There's no, like, you think of all these different races there's always some kind of little discrepancy, but there's never been any real issues. One of the neat obstacles that they have each year is a zip line that goes over the river. Mm-hmm. And they used to have it where it was part of the normal race. Like, actually, it was actually toward the end. So you would get to it, after running 2.5 miles. And it was tricky because they've got this weird setup where it's like they've got these lifts. I can't think of what kind of machines those are, but...
like forklifts?
Yeah, but bigger. So
the bucket lift?
Kind of like that. It's very similar.
Uh-huh.
So on the end of that, like on the end of the bucket, there's these contraptions, I guess, that they have built to where they've got a bicycle wheel, and the wire is hooked on to something else, I guess, so it's nice and sturdy. But then the bicycle wheel has a line on it that's attached to the apparatus that you hang on. And it's a little seat you sit on, so it's not dangerous. But so after one person goes down, they use a drill gun to wind back up the wire that goes on the bike wheel. So it's there's only so many of them. So that was a discrepancy. That was a small discrepancy in the past, is where when you get to that point, are there people already there? Like, do you have to wait in line, basically? And so they've kind of, not on purpose, but by necessity, fixed that because of COVID. So they ended up, their race is usually like in May. And because of COVID, 2020, they pushed it to October and still had the race, which is pretty cool.
That's cool.
But to help socially distance people, they did it to where the start was actually at the zip line. So that actually helped space people out because only so many people can go at a time.
Yeah. It's a good idea.
So not only that, but they made it to where the start line, the start timing mat was after the zip line. So you did the zip line, you get off, and then you run, like you hop up a little thing, and then that's where the timing mat starts. So your time didn't actually start until after you did the zip line, which helped with the other issue from, do I get there and there's somebody about to go and I gotta wait? So it kind of funny how COVID like fixed the one problem they had, and just forced them to deal with it by necessity. So I thought that was really neat. So they've done it now twice, where they've had it to where you do the zipline first. So which only drawback to that is it makes it chip time instead of gun time.
Yeah.
So you don't know, I'm running as hard as I can, but I don't know if it's fast enough because I can't see the competitors because they may have ran before me or after me.
Yeah.
So, but we did that just here in, middle end of May. into May, and it was a good time. Again, I ran first. I got third. I got third behind an older gentleman in second that I swear I've seen him, like, I think he does Spartan and stuff. And then the first place guy, he won the year before. And I recognize that because he's actually won more times than that. But I recognize it because I got second last year, back in October. So I thought to myself, this year, I was like, all right, this year I can really try and go out and try and see if I can win it this time. But man, that dude, he's too fast for me. I got third, like, I want to say I was like 20 to 30 seconds behind the other second place. And then first place was like 3 minutes ahead of me. So he was, the dude's. And he said he fell off of the slip wall. Not the slip wall, the Z wall.
What?
And did 15 burpees, and he still was 15 minutes ahead of me. So their obstacles aren't anything.
So this was the second place guy or the first place?
The first place guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I was looking at the results from.
Oh. So, yeah, Josh Champ, he actually, he's obviously got some good speed on him.
Yeah.
So it was kind of crazy to think that he beat me even after falling off an obstacle. Their obstacles, they don't have a lot of hard stuff.
Yeah.
They've basically got, in the past, really the only hard obstacle that they had was a vertical rope wall. And that's really it. That was the only, really failable obstacle they had. But now they've got that one. They've got some new monkey bars that's like incline to decline monkey bars. And really the only other big obstacle that they have is, there's a rope climb. They had a rope climb this year too. So that was obviously failable.
And that was new for them?
Yeah, the rope climb was new for them. Yeah. And they have a big A-frame cargo net. And it's so funny. This is not Spartan. This is not like people who are doing obstacle races every weekend.
Right.
So whenever you go and do a flip on the top of the A-frame cargo, you always get some whoa or wow. You get some reactions out of that.
That's always fun, though.
Yeah. So,
I was looking at those times, though. That Josh Champ guy, he only beat you by, a minute 40.
No, what?
Yeah.
No.
His time was 28:01, and your time was 30:51.
So almost 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's 2.5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, not quite.
Not quite that close, but.
Yeah. That's right. So the Z wall is failable too, but that's what I was going to say is that I've never had any issues with any of their obstacles. I've not failed any of them after 5 years.
There was still some people that showed up to the race that haven't necessarily raced that race, like Miranda Huber.
Yeah,
it was for the women's side.
It was interesting. I've never seen anybody else I knew at this race until this year.
Yeah.
And then I saw AC and Miranda, and I actually saw a couple of other people that I've, when we go to Spartan Austin and camp out, some people that I've seen from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was interesting, which is good. It's good that this race has been around for a while. I mean, it's just a once a year race, so it's awesome, and they're raising money for whatever charities they're deciding on. So yeah, good causes. So that's good. I like that kind of stuff, those kind of races. There used to be one in Longview that I went to 2 years in a row, and I can't remember what. The dogs are going nuts. I can't remember what charities they did it for, but I would go and run it. Hey, calm down. Too much. I would go run it as a multi-lap, basically training for other races.
For like Spartan Austin or something. Because I think I remember you talking about that race in Longview.
Yeah. It was fun. Again, like not really hard obstacles, but just good to get some training in. Basically more like put mileage on your feet kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Dog, we're trying to do something. What are y'all doing? Why now?
You're both so needy.
Yeah, so Spartacus was cool. If you are looking for a race, obviously with races being as many as they are nowadays.
Yeah. Which I feel like that's probably why they had a lot of people. They had a lot of people sign up for that race because, like, races, like I said, races are happening, and like people are going to sign up for whatever races.
People are getting excited.
Are on.
Why won't they stop?
I don't know. It's so crazy. Stop it. Toy. Look, toy.
Nope. Oh. It's that one. It's that one's fault.
It's that one's fault.
Instigator.
Oh my goodness.
Hey. There you go. Come stab me in the neck with your claws instead of fighting the other one. So after... Oh my goodness. We're going to have a whole dog fighting section part of this podcast. So after Spartacus Dash, we were going to talk about Ragnar, and then we didn't. We never got around to it. So we had Ragnar. So Ragnar happened just today. We finished up. It's still...
But before that was KC.
Oh, sorry.
Battle of the Line.
Getting ahead of myself.
She just looks at
I thought
me
if we got silent, maybe they would stop.
I know.
Come here, calm down. So, yeah, Battle of the Lions had their second race in Kansas City. And you...
Which was totally, it was totally impromptu because I had a free weekend and I was like, hey, why not? It was an 8-hour drive. Yeah,
which is funny, and I'll discuss this for a moment. I actually asked in the groups if anybody was able to be a camera person for the race. And while there was conversation around it, nobody actually offered up. And this is a interesting topic to me because obviously we're not doing this for money.
Yeah.
We don't have money to offer somebody.
Right.
Now, I was, because David and Sid are awesome, I was able to say, if you live stream, if you become a camera person for us, you get a free open wave race. So you can hop in and run the course later. But, again, nobody had stepped up.
Hey, does that mean I get a free entry into Oklahoma?
Oh, well, I told you. Actually, I thought you were going to run the course in Kansas City.
Yeah. Plans.
So, yes, I'm pretty positive if you want to run one of them, you can. So to cover it, you ended up being able to go, which was kind of last minute.
Yeah.
And
so much fun, though.
We covered the race with me at my computer at home and you just on, with your phone. So we did it as a 2-person crew, and I did some overlay graphics, but also did some commentary with you, which was really cool because the way we did it, you had an earbud in from your phone, and while there was a slight delay, you could hear me, and then, of course, I could hear you through the camera. So we were able to have some back and forth commentary just like that. So not that that's like the way, the professional setup, you want to have people dedicated to each task. You want to have people that are the commentary people and people that are the camera people. But for just having 2 people, I think we pulled it off, decently well. And now the only downfall to this one was what I wanted to look at, and I was basically testing, was bitrate, latency-wise.
Yeah.
At Hildervat, we did 1,000 milliseconds, which is basically a second, and
of delay.
Yeah, and like I said, I had issues with one camera, but not the other ones. It was so weird. And really, what you're looking for is the ping time. So when you're trying to communicate from a phone to a computer over the internet, over cell signal, what is the travel time for that information? And I can actually see that from my end. So typically you're looking like, depending on where you're at in the world, you're looking at, somewhere between 20 and 60 milliseconds is good. So that is what we were seeing. But then when the race started, it's almost like there was a lot of spikes. So when things would spike, we ended up using a latency of, it might have been only 200. I don't remember if it was 200 or 500. It was low, lower than what I've used before. So it ended up being kind of glitchy looking at times. And I think that's why. But what I was seeing was spikes in the latency. It was the ping, the round trip time of information. So it was very weird.
There was also a lot of people in that area using their cell phones.
And that's what I wonder is just the crowd. I mean, I've heard that before, that, a crowd of people all using cell phones, like the cell phone coverage actually can get crowded.
Yeah.
So maybe that was part of it.
Because they're all trying to bounce off of the same cell towers at the same time.
Yeah, it's like when we were testing before the race, not as many people were there.
Yeah.
And then when the race starts and everybody's there. So.
Yeah. Well, and then you have all the people at the race.
Yeah.
Not just the spectators, but the people working the race too.
Right.
Trying to communicate with each other.
So yeah, it was definitely a good learning experience that, in that kind of situation, you only got one camera, and that's it. And you can't switch off of it if it's not working. So I think really the best setup is to have commentators that are looking at the live footage instead of trying to communicate with the camera people. Because
it's a lot more instant.
Yeah. So even if it's a 2-second delay from the camera, and we saw this with Hildervat the first day, if you're trying to talk about what you're seeing and it's 2 seconds, it seems like forever with what you're watching versus what you hear people are talking about. Like they said that happened. 2 seconds doesn't seem like a lot, but it is.
Yeah.
So
when you're talking about live coverage, yeah.
Right. One thing though is cool though, what we're able to do, and we're not seeing anybody else do, is live replays. Pretty neat to be able to mark a spot in time. And of course, this is dependent on who's producing. So
like all the highlights that we've been able to. Yeah.
So to be able to say, I'm watching the different cameras and I'm switching between those, and in Battle KC's situation. There was only one camera, so what I was more focusing on was nameplates and like showing the obstacle names, keeping track of who finished when. So there's a lot of stuff to keep track of,
which is especially hard with their obstacles because they're not numbered. You don't know like
the names are odd.
Yeah, the names are odd. You don't know what obstacles what. Like at least if they're numbered, a general sense of which way the course is going to travel.
Yeah.
But with their map, like we just had their course map and then like roughly an idea of where the obstacles were going to be.
Yeah, for the most part, it was pretty much spot on. Accurate. It seemed like there was like one or two that was odd.
Yeah, I know there was that scaffolding obstacle that Sid added in last minute.
Scaffolding flipping
yeah. So there was that one. That was pretty interesting. But, I mean, for the most part, a lot of people at that race had a lot of really good feedback for that race. They enjoyed it. They thought it was challenging. They thought it still felt like an OCR. It didn't feel like strictly a strength course where, you were just like picking up heavy things and traveling with them for a long time.
You're the instigator, huh? Yeah. What Sid and I feel like we've said this over and over. I think what Sid has done has been great. Obviously, there's been issues with his races, but with David as the logistics guy, it's really helped.
Yeah.
Calm down. It's taken what Sid has started and I think turned it into something really, really nice. Stop it.
Dogs are
I don't even know what to do.
The dogs are just going to do their own thing.
There you go.
Close them down.
It almost worked.
Yeah. Now they're just going to take it to the floor. No, Sid even talked about that whenever I was there. He was like, man, it's so nice to just be able to build obstacles and like not have to worry about anything else.
Yeah.
And
it's great to do what you're good at. Like do the part that's enjoyable to you.
He knows his limitations. He knows he's good at building the obstacles and coming up with the ideas for these obstacles and coming up with the ideas for these races. Now, making these races happen is a completely different story. So that's where David comes in.
The thing in question here is really people complaining about quality of a race. Certain people, plenty of people have had lots of things to say about battle in general. Of course, Spartan gets its own critiques about different races. And so my thought here is, what's the difference here? Spartan is a company that puts on how many races in a year? 50 plus?
A lot.
60? In a normal year.
Yeah.
Whereas a company like Hildervat or Battle, maybe 1 or 2 a year at the most.
3 or 4 if they're lucky.
So I know, going into these races when you are looking to give feedback, obviously good constructive criticism is always important. I remember being at US OCR, the USA OCR.
Whenever I was in Texas?
Yeah, and Adrian Bijanata seeing me, not knowing me, just as a regular racer and saying, hey, how was it? What did you think? And I said, oh, it was great. And I gave one bit of feedback, and he was like super attentive to that. And, it's every race is, especially if they don't do races all the time, there's always going to be, it's hard to get it exactly perfect.
Yeah.
Spartan, with the sheer amount of races that they do,
and personnel,
they should be the closest to having it perfect. But even then, there's still going to be things that just won't come up until it happens.
Yeah.
So,
like that bucket carry debacle of the Glen Rose Ultra a couple years ago.
What was the debacle?
Where everybody was like sinking into waist deep mud in the bucket carry. That was the Ultra that I never finished.
Oh.
You remember that one? That was like a couple years ago, I think.
I don't.
That was months before my first World's Toughest. Yeah. Remember? And I was like, screw this course. I hate it. It's not fun.
I do remember the mud, but I feel like I somehow went around it and not, like I didn't get stuck like everybody else did.
Yeah. Yeah, I tried to go around it, but there was a point of the day at which, like, you couldn't avoid it. Like, people were trying to find their way around it and, like, really go around where the bucket carry was supposed to be. And I was like, I'm done. I'm going to take shots of Fireball in the pit.
But I think that's part of that. The talk is always about, should obstacle course racing be in the Olympics? Should it be standardized? Yeah. And that's part of what makes obstacle racing so great. And I feel like this is the thing that I continuously come back to is obstacle course racing is great because it is so diverse.
Yes.
Because it can be so many different things. And if you nail it down to one specific thing, then it's not going to be as exciting, as enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, you can make a very strict, rigid league out of a... Yeah, like if it needs to go to the Olympics, yes, it should be very hard set rules and format.
Mm-hmm.
But why do we all do it? What reason did we get into it? Because of that, oh, I'm going to a Spartan and I don't know what the distance is.
I don't know what to expect.
Or, there are mystery obstacles. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember those.
So,
days.
like, that's the stuff that's like, when people complain about issues that obstacle course races have, I just I just hope that people keep in mind the unknown is something that races can't plan every possibility for because they haven't done it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for as long as OCR is going to be the thing we knew it as, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt for issues and not be so hard on them.
Yeah.
So, just go easy on the races because I personally want it to stay where it's not, every single thing you're going to get.
Yeah. And for it to become an Olympic sport or whatever, you think it's going to evolve to, it does have to be standardized.
And some people...
I think that takes away a lot of the fun of it.
Well, I think some people would be into that format, but I think the majority of, think about, the past, think 5 years ago and before, everybody that got into obstacle course racing at that point in time got into it because it was this unknown thing.
Right.
So for it to stay like that, it can't be, obviously there can be a piece that is like High Rocks where it's the exact same thing every single time. But that's not the obstacle course racing that I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to keep going to a mountain where it's like, I know that every year I go, it's going to be a different trail.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why, we spoke about earlier before we recorded, that's why I think the world that it fits best in is the X Games world, which is why I think Red Bull teaming up with OCRWC is so cool because that's kind of like their crowd, right? Like you think of a sport like skateboarding, for example, and tons of people skateboard every day and tons of people can do tricks in and out of half pipes and empty pools and whatever every day. But the small percentage of people that are able to compete and actually make a living off the sport of skateboarding, it's almost similar to the small percentage of people that are actually able to do this full time and compete as athletes full time.
Yeah, I'd say statistically yes, because there are more people that skateboard than do OCR,
right.
But there are
comparatively
there are more people that make a living off of skateboarding than do OCR. But,
and it's a better comparison than professional football players or baseball players or something like
right.
that.
Right. Yeah,
in a more standardized sport, anyway.
Yeah, and skateboarding competition is very interesting because there is no start and finish. There's no timing.
Yeah.
It's all judge scores.
And it's almost subjective because they're like, oh, that trick wasn't hard. But then if you had a different judge the same trick, then they would be like, oh, wow, that was so difficult.
But aren't there competitions like that in the Olympics? Isn't interpretive
interpretive dance or something,
not
or
dance,
gymnastics.
Isn't that an Olympic sport?
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah,
or even diving. Diving is based off of just judging scores.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
but I feel like the environment that those are held in is such a sterile environment that you're just focused on the performer. You're just focused on the athlete. There's no level of difficulty of terrain or
Well, skateboarding,
weather.
right? So skateboarding, they will change up their courses,
right?
Whereas that interpretive gymnastics is the flat floor every time,
right? Yeah. So you're just focused on the performer. You're just focused on the athlete, just like diving, right? Yeah. They're in a very sterile environment, whereas like you bring in a sport like obstacle racing, everything is out the window. Like you're on a completely different terrain. The next week, just like the Spartan U.S. National Series, you know, one week you can be in Jacksonville, Florida. The next weekend you can be in Utah, where it's higher elevation, more mountainous. The next one might be like in Carolinas somewhere. So it's ever changing, and weather is always a factor. Terrain, of course, distance. So there's a lot of different factors that are, I guess, considered into OCR versus like rhythmic gymnastics.
Right. I kind of tend to look at OCR as fitting more with just the random weird sports. Like skateboarding is kind of, I mean, even X Games in itself is kind of somewhat mainstream in a way.
Yeah.
So, you know, thinking about, there's one Red Bull sponsored competition where they dive off a high dive, and they have like costumes, and I think it's either about distance or.
Yeah. Is it the one where like they're trying to traverse a pole and it's like covered in shaving
Well, there's that one too.
Something?
That's a totally different one. That's pretty wild.
Or the pole vaulting over a river or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, you know, Red Bull covers so many different random sports. I feel like if they don't have, I know they, like, you can go find like a Red Bull channel where it just shows like maybe like GoPro footage of random like snowboarders or something. Mm-hmm. But I feel like if they haven't done it, they should have their own sports channel where it's like every sport that doesn't fit on, that you don't see on Fox News.
Yeah.
Not Fox. Well, yeah. Fox or NBC or CBS. If it's a sport and it exists, and you don't see it there, we're going to try and put it, ESPN. But it would be like even further removed than ESPN 8 or whatever. Ocho. You know, like that's what it is. Like that's I think that was their joke, is that there's all these random sports out there.
Yeah.
But, you know, that would be the legit, like, this is the Red Bull channel.
The Red Bull
and this
channel.
is all the random sports that you see.
Which OCR would fit nicely into.
Because there are so many random weird sports just because people are competitive.
Yeah.
On the flight out here, I actually watched this movie called The Buddy Games. And the movie itself wasn't really that great, but it had the underlying idea, you know, that we are, as people, we are competitive. And it kind of fits with all this, I think. That
makes sense.
There's, you know, you can turn anything into a sport. When I was I spent a summer doing summer camp up in Asheville, North Carolina, somewhere in there. And every day at lunch, we would take this. It's like a paper football, but it was actually made out of, I don't know, some nice material. And we'd try and kick it across the table.
Like I remember that game. Yeah.
Yeah, but we, like a long table, like a long, you know, dining hall table.
Yeah.
And we'd kick it from one end to the other and try to get it into a cup. And I was just like, that was every day at lunch, is we'd try to do that. So just little random things like that. It's like we're constantly trying to be like, let's turn this into a game. So
trying to compete at something.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's kind of endless, the amount of, if there was a rando sports channel, you know, what all would be in there. You'd see me kicking this paper football into a cup.
Hey, they have cup stacking.
Yeah.
That's a sport now.
Would that be in the Olympics?
Games?
What?
E-games?
Yeah.
Video games?
Yeah.
Multiplayer games? Yeah.
Does Red Bull do anything with that? I don't know.
Probably.
I wouldn't be surprised because there's strangely a lot of money in that.
Yeah.
All right, there's a lot of random stuff that we just talked about
It's
there.
just ESPN Ocho.
All right, Ragnar.
Yeah.
So we planned on doing Ragnar last year. We had a team.
The whole WTM crew.
Yeah.
The usual crew that we've got with us.
These two dogs. Is there a better time to do this?
This is probably what they do all day whenever they're alone with each other. And I just don't know it.
Hey.
Yeah, Ragnar.
Do you like Ragnar, dog?
We were supposed to do Ragnar with Mike and Caitlin and Mark and our whole WTM crew.
We actually had Josh Chase and Ryan Joy on our team as well.
And then the world shut down and nobody was allowed to travel, and that kind of put a kink in our plans.
Yep.
Even though we were automatically deferred to this year, everything was still uncertain, so we didn't really know who was in, who was out.
So, yeah, it got deferred. Mike and Caitlin couldn't make it because of travel restrictions. At least that was the beginning of the year for them. Which, I feel like, I don't remember when I made my flight plans, but it was fairly early. And I think at that time they still couldn't travel out of state for their job. So we ended up deciding, since we can't get this whole big team together.
Yeah, team of 8 people.
Yep, team of 8 people, as Ragnar does, the normal Ragnar. Let's do a Ragnar Ultra team, which is only 4 people. And it's kind of funny, like, once we got into that, it's like, that sounds more fun to me anyway. Cause if I want to go to a endurance event, I want to run more. Like, why would I pay this money and go do all this?
Run once, take a 5.5 hour break, and then run again. Then take another 5.5 hour break.
Which I've done before, and it is fun. Like, having 8 people on a team, this is something that we missed out on. I mean, I saw, tents around us where people are just like obviously we hung out, but it was like a powwow of people just chilling, laughing, cutting up, and we didn't really have that because, a fourth of our team was gone at any point in time, or maybe more because of whatever.
So for the people that aren't familiar with Ragnar and Ragnar Ultra, at least the differences.
Ragnar itself, the regular Ragnar is, there's 3 loops, 8 people. Each person will run all 3 loops over the course of
24 hours.
So you have to run the loops in order. So there's green, yellow, red. So no matter who goes, you go green, yellow, red, green, yellow, red, green, yellow, red, and so on. And so the one time I did Ragnar a few years ago, I ran sometime in the afternoon, and then I didn't run again until like 9 that night.
Middle of the night, or late at night.
And then I ran again at like 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really like, that was it. That was my whole...
Spaced out.
Yeah.
So like you have a team of 8, and each person runs 15 miles, roughly.
Ish, yeah.
So basically the Ragnar Ultra teams do the work of an 8-person team.
Yeah, so it's just double that, yeah.
Yeah. So our 4-person team basically did a 50K each.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is still interesting in itself, in comparison to what we're used to.
Yeah.
So I think I'd like to get into that. But before we do, we actually filled out our team. We knew we had me and you. You're in Colorado, so you had no excuse.
Yeah.
I was like, I paid for this team, so I'm going to race it. And then, so I asked you, do you have anybody to race with us? And you had your coach?
Mm-hmm. My trainer
your trainer
at the gym, yeah.
How did you find this trainer? Before we talk about her more.
So it was funny, whenever I first joined 24 Hour Fitness, it was because I could get the company discount at 24 Hour Fitness Clubs through my company. And joined 24 Hour Fitness, and I told the guy, because, whenever they first sign you up for a membership, they're trying to sell you all these additional things on top. And I was like, whatever, I'm not buying whatever.
You mean they're not just telling you about free pizza?
Exactly.
Is that the...
That's
wait.
Planet Fitness.
Sorry. Yeah,
free pizza and Bagel Mondays and free Tootsie Rolls at the front desk. Yeah. So the guy was like, so are you training for anything? Are you working towards anything? Do you have any fitness goals? And at the time I was training for another year at WTM, and I really wanted to hit my 50, and I was really
when was this?
This was pre-COVID. So after 2018.
Okay.
Going into 2019 World Toughest.
Okay. And
so I was like, yeah, I'm training for this. I want to get this many miles. This is what I'd like to do. And
wait. So you were at 24 Hour Fitness.
Yeah.
Telling some salesperson that you were looking to do how many miles at
World Toughest, which 24 Hour Fitness has an affiliation with Spartan.
Oh, okay. So they were somewhat familiar, at least?
Yeah, because I think at the same time they were still trying to promote, the DecaFit stuff was just starting up, maybe. So
that's right, because they had a Spartan OCR corner for a minute there.
Yeah.
Huh.
So they were a little bit familiar with Spartan, but not quite. So, I kind of gave him the short and skinny of what I like to do. And
what was their reaction?
And he was like, well, and I've never seen this guy since. I don't think he even works at the club anymore.
He quit the day after.
Yeah. He was like, I've got the perfect person for you. This lady, Kathleen, she's an older lady, and she's in her 40s, but she's done all these endurance events, and, I think she'd be really well versed in what you do. And, that's the first time I've ever felt, very well matched to someone who can train, or who I can train with, or who I feel comfortable,
So they actually did a good job backing you up.
Yeah.
Cool.
and, they did the whole, free personal training session as a promo thing. And whenever we met and I started talking to her and she started doing all this testing on me, gait training or gait analysis and everything like that, she was like, my background is Ironmans, and my background is I've qualified for Boston this many times. And
so was she was selling herself to you at first?
Not really.
Okay, she was just explaining.
Yeah, she was just more or less just getting to know me and getting to know what I like to do and how I like to train.
Again, her background is Ironman and marathons.
Marathons, and a lot of road biking. She teaches a lot of the spinning classes.
Okay.
So just really pure endurance training. As I'm getting to know her now more and more and working out with her more and more, she had this one lady who was in her 60s that was prepping for a 40-mile swim.
Oh, wow.
A 40-mile race. And it was over the course of 3 or 4 days or something like that.
What?
Yeah. I think they did it in bouts. So they would do 10-ish miles a day.
Where were they doing this? Swimming? 40-mile swimming race?
I don't know. I forgot to ask her, but
just
I know
it was
it was open water. It was open water swimming because she trained in the pool, and Kathleen would train with her, and Kathleen would put snacks by the pool whenever she was training at the gym. And she'd like put little snacks by the pool, and then like later on in the day, if she was still swimming, like she'd jump in the pool with her and do a couple miles with her. So like she's just one of those
swimming.
Yeah, she's just like one of those endurance junkies. Like she's qualified for the Kona World Championships for Ironman like several times.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's just like, and she's super modest, and like after she got in her bike accident, she didn't, she had a lot of recovery time after that. So I felt like after that she had like this new lease on athletics and keep staying fit and just like enjoying every opportunity that you get to like perform. So yeah, that's her background.
Okay. So you had been training with her for a while.
Yeah. Probably at least a year and a half.
And how did you approach her about it?
I just texted her and asked her. Because I knew she was an endurance junkie.
Did she know, like, from y'all's training sessions, did she know that you were planning on doing this?
Yeah, she knew I was planning on doing a Ragnar, and she had mentioned, she was like, oh, I've always wanted to do one. Oh. And so if y'all are looking for another teammate, just let me know.
Oh, she had already mentioned it.
Yeah, she had mentioned it once. Just once. That's all it took. Just once. And yeah, that's all it took. And so once I knew, so backing up actually, one of our vendors at work, he likes to do like a lot of trail races and just short stuff, like maybe train for half marathons or 5Ks or 10Ks here and there. And not Ragnar Ultra, but regular Ragnar, he was like, oh yeah, I've had a lot of buddies that have done that. And I've heard it's really pretty and it's really fun. So he was up for the regular Ragnar. But he had some weird like middle ear stuff going on where he had to have surgery at Johns Hopkins. And like it was like 50% recovery thing. And he was trying to get his fitness back up after not working out for a while. And whenever we switched to ultra, he was like, yeah, I don't think
okay.
He was like, yeah, I don't think I'm in ultra fitness. So like, I could go out and do 15 miles spread out over 24 hours, but not 30.
Come on, man.
I know.
Double that?
I know. It's
problem?
no big deal. But I knew Kathleen would be down for it just because she tries to stay in that type of fitness.
What did she say when you asked her?
Oh, she was totally down for it.
Just right away?
Oh, yeah. She was totally down for it. She was like, yes, absolutely.
Nice.
Like, let me know for sure if you want me on your team. Because, like I said, she's modest. And she's like, I'm turning 50 years old that weekend. I'm probably going to be sandbagging all of y'all. But yet, she was like the fastest one on our team. Just like I predicted she would be.
So we had Kathleen. And then we had, basically, you didn't have anybody else in mind. I didn't have anybody else. Yeah. So I posted on the event page for Ragnar if anybody else was looking to join our Ultra team. Mm-hmm. So we got a guy named Jeff. You remember his last name?
Beatty.
Jeff Beatty, yep. He reached out and said, hey, you still looking for somebody? And I said, yeah. He's done, me and you, mostly OCR. He's done over the past several years, mostly Ragnar. So he's done
like 10 Ragnars.
Yeah, this was his 10th one. Mm-hmm. He said he used to live in the Ohio area, and he did a lot of the East Coast ones. So he did like Appalachians and West Virginia, maybe. A lot of random ones out there. I don't know if he ever did Texas. Yeah, that's the one I did, was in Texas. But anyway, so we got him, not last minute, but pretty close.
Pretty close, yeah.
Pretty close to as last minute as you can get. And so we had our team, us two who knew each other, your trainer, and then one random. It actually worked out really well because he was driving in himself. I was flying in. You actually worked on Thursday.
Yeah.
And, the race is on Friday, so you worked on Thursday. But this is in Aspen
Mm-hmm.
and Snowmass, which is about 3 hours out from Denver. So, you getting off of work, takes time to get out there.
Mm-hmm.
I flew in. You were still kind of behind, so I went ahead and drove out there. Jeff, he was already out there. By the time I got there, he actually got there, right on time for them to open up and allow you to check for spots. So for those, whoa,
sorry, that was my fault. I was trying to pull the word.
So for those that don't know, Ragnar, you get a camping spot for your team, and so you pick that spot out by just whatever's available. And in the past, they've always had it to where it's just like an open field. But COVID-wise, now it's more like World's Toughest, where you've got a specific pit area.
Mm-hmm.
So he was able to get there and get a pit area for us, and actually got a pretty sweet spot. So the weekend started out very cool in that I got there. He was already set up, ready to go. I got my stuff out and set up, and then me and him basically camped out, and you and Kathleen showed up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Now we had it to where, so we've got these 3 loops: green, yellow, red, that you do over and over with 4 people. So basically, it ends up being, if I start on green, I'm gonna end up doing green, yellow, red, green, yellow, red.
Mm-hmm.
And for somebody like Jeff, he actually started on. No.
He started the same as you.
Yeah. He started on green. You started on red.
Yeah.
So you went red, green, yellow, red, green, yellow.
Uh-huh.
So your last lap was on yellow. My last lap was on red. His was on red, and Kathleen's was on green.
Mm-hmm. Because Kathleen started on yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as the race goes, the venue, it was pretty cool. Like, I would love to see another Ragnar to see how it compares.
Yeah.
If any of them has as good of a, honestly, even the camping area was great because we were on the soccer field with the most luscious grass you could ever find.
Which we've gotten a lot of rain in the last few months. Like, unprecedented amount of rain and moisture. So everything right now, instead of being like brown and dead, is like really green and luscious right now.
Yeah, it's a really weird time of year here too, because summer has started, but it was still it was like 40. I forget what it was like the night before. Low 40s.
Low 40s. And honestly,
low 40s both nights, I think.
Actually, earlier this month, so to put it in perspective, earlier this month, the very last ski resort closed down.
Oh, wow.
For the season. So, we're talking late May, early June to close down a ski resort, which is pretty much unheard of.
Yeah. Yeah, so still very cold at night. Mm-hmm. But as we saw, the temperature, the day temperature just gets wild. Yeah. The way it felt like going from 40 degrees to 90 degrees. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, it was 40 degrees. It was low 40s.
Yeah, because I don't think it got below 40.
And then, right, it didn't get into the 30s. But by 9 o'clock in the morning, it's already 60-something.
Yeah. Even though there was, so I think the reason why there was a nice little frost on everything was because it was so hot during the day. so hot during the day, and then like the temperature dropped so drastically that you had all this condensation that was forming on everything that just like created this nice frost on the grass and on our whiteboard and everything else.
Yeah, it was weird. And honestly, being out and running those loops, it felt like the temperature in the village area, in the camping area, was colder.
Mm-hmm.
Like running, when you got done with your, to me, when I got done with my loop, it felt like it was colder down there.
Probably because you were sweating more, but...
I was. That's true. So, the village area was great. We got started, our team chose to start at 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they figured we would take forever. So they started us at 9 o'clock, which is the earliest, like the first team started at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And they do it very different. You know, it's a very different world than obstacle course racing. It's because it's a relay and there's no like set finish time.
Mm-hmm.
They do it to where it's
based on pace.
They want everybody to finish kind of within the same amount of 12 hours time frame. So they want everybody to finish on Saturday within the same amount of time. So if you're super fast, they'll start you later in the day because they expect you to still finish within that time. But if you're slow, they'll start you first. And I guess they like these people.
These people are slow. We're going to start them off in the first wave of the day.
Yeah. Which we did, I'd say in comparison to that, we did pretty good. Like,
yeah.
Jeff's estimate had us finishing before 24 hours, which...
That was a pretty ambitious estimate.
So we had our camp. You guys showed up and we started, 9 o'clock. I went out for the green loop and, right away you feel that elevation. It was pretty tough, but it was kind of funny, and maybe it's just because it's the start of the race. Everybody's fresh. Everybody goes out fast.
Yeah.
I felt like I was being conservative, but I was probably still doing like an 8:30 pace. I was like, this is too fast. I need to slow down. And when we hit that first climb,
coming out of the neighborhood.
Yeah, so people had passed me up to that climb. And then when we got into the climb, I started seeing people walking way more than I would have thought. And so I passed a few people on the climb itself just because it's just like they were... Did you go out too fast? Because I know I did, so you must have went out really fast. So I know my first 2 loops, my first 3 loops, because we did them 6 times. I feel like I was pushing, like, not crazy hard. Like, I wasn't killing myself, but I was definitely, like, trying to get a good time.
Yeah.
And that first green loop, I went pretty good, and, but all 3 of these trails were all yellow. Yeah, I'd say all 3 of these trails.
Chill. Yellow
was more mellow than the other 2, for sure. But really, all 3 of them were you go up and then you come down. Yeah. It wasn't a big up and down, up and down. Yeah. Obviously, there were like little hills, but it really was overall mostly you go up and then you come down.
Yeah, and yellow was probably more of the rolling hills that you would.
Yeah.
You would expect.
So on the green one, it was just let's climb on up. Let's take this kind of not ridge. It
was like a little switchback thing.
Well, they had a spot that was fairly flat that kind of went over to a different section, and then you switch back all the way back down.
Yeah. So
it really was climb up, get over to the other side, and then come down hard.
Yeah. So
that first, it's always like that.
The green wasn't like that, though, I don't feel like. The green.
What do you mean?
Like, the red loop, it was definitely like whenever you were climbing up, whenever you got to the 3-mile point, whenever you got to the halfway point, you knew the rest of it was downhill.
3.5. It was spot on 3.5.
3.5. But the green loop, it was like 1.5 miles you climb, and then you go through this flat-ish section.
It was a little flat, yeah, more flat.
But then, like, to mile 2 to 2.5 or whatever, no, up to mile 2, maybe a little bit beyond that, was like straight climb. Still.
Mm.
And it was like just straight up. And then you come down once it merged with the red loop.
But like it's like once it started going down, there were a couple of spots that weren't flat.
Yeah, once it started going down, it was down.
Yeah. Yeah, so, when your legs are fresh, it's easy to bomb that stuff.
Yeah.
And so, like, my first loop, it was just like, climb up, run hard if I can, and then just, send it, as they say. But as time went on, that got harder to do, because your legs are tired, and it gets dark, and all that stuff. So... I did the green loop first, and then Kathleen went after me. And Kathleen... the yellow loop was kind of weird because it had one little spot that overlapped. So it was two-way traffic at this one spot. And she somehow came... It's crazy because it's like a... Oh, let's see if I can describe it. It's a... When you're coming into this section the first time... Mm-hmm. You're going up a hill, and you go around the curve. Mm-hmm. And then the trail splits. And then you cross the road. No. Well, after that. So, so the part where it's two-way. Oh, yeah. So you're heading up. It's two-way traffic. Mm-hmm. And then the trail goes around the curve and then splits. Yeah, coming off the Highline Trail. When you're first going... I remember it because I was seeing this guy coming down as I was going up, as he was finishing the loop. Yeah. And he was like, there's some gorgeous views up there. I'm like, yeah, I know. I've been up there before. This is my second time on the loop. That was a funny thing. Like, we can talk more about that. But that's an interesting part of being an ultra team. Yeah. So you come around this curve, and the trail splits. And if you go right, it's more mellow. And if you go left, it's very steep. Straight up. But you were supposed to go right. Yeah. It's okay. So easy enough. You go right. Yeah. I mean, there are signs. Uh-huh. So you go right. And then you end up coming back around to where that spot is. Mm-hmm. So if you think about it, what I just said, if you go right, it's mellow. And if you go left, it's steep. So when you're coming down that steep spot. Yeah. And then, like I said, you're coming around the curve. Mm-hmm. So the trail splits, and then there's a curve. So if you're coming down the steep spot, you're like going into the merge and then around the corner. Mm-hmm. So Kathleen somehow just didn't take the corner and instead just made a U-turn and went back. I don't know where she got turned around, but she ended up making what was that loop? That loop was like 4.5, 4.4 miles. Yeah, so she turned that one into a 7-mile loop, but she still finished it in less than an hour. Yeah, less than an hour. She finished it in because she was calling me and she was like, I think I just passed mile 2 again. I don't know if I was supposed to pass mile 2 again. And we were looking at the map and we were like, well, it looks like it doubles back on itself. So I think you're going the right way. But we didn't know exactly where she was. Yeah, because we hadn't done it yet. Yeah. But yeah, sure enough, she did that section twice. Yeah. I just remember standing there with Jeff because I was the one that always took the bib from Kathleen. Mm-hmm. And I was waiting for her. And Jeff was kind of keeping an eye on her time, and he was like, well, there goes the sheet. There goes the time sheet. Well, like, what's a trail race if one of us doesn't get lost? That's true. Really. That's true. Bonus miles. There's always bonus miles in trail races, right? Because that loop, actually, it literally did have 1, 2, 3... 4, 5, like 5 different spots you could go 2 different ways. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the other 2 loops didn't have that, and so I guess it's understandable that it was almost kind of like because of
the way you came in and out of it, it was almost kind of like a lollipop route. But whenever you finished the loop at the top, instead of going back the way you came, you had to cross over onto another section of trail and then rejoin the rest of the trail that you started on.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
But it was good. I mean, it was great. Great trail.
Yeah. Honestly, the red loop was probably my favorite just because of the views. Even though, that was my first loop I had to do, and I probably did it at the second to worst time of day.
Yeah.
It was so hot. Yeah. And half of it was on pavement, following all the switchbacks on the roads up the mountain in the neighborhoods, going up the mountain. But then, once you got on the trail and once you got on that ridge line, it was, amazing. The views from that ridge line were incredible.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how you can go 2.5 miles up the road.
Yeah.
And then get on the trail, and it's I gotta start going down at some point.
Yeah.
Just keep on going up.
And then you keep seeing the ridge line, and that's where I passed my first person was on the switchbacks going up to that ridge line, because he was hiking his way up there, and we could see a few people making their way up the switchbacks up to the ridge, and he's like, I can't believe we have to go all the way up there. And he was an older gentleman, and you could tell he was just keeping it really chill. And I was like, yep, we've got a ways to go. But I guess being out here and being a little familiar with some of the trails that are around here, most of the mountain trails, it's always a climb up and then sending it down. Just kind of making your way on down.
So yeah, I know, my first three, I did green, yellow, red. Mm-hmm. And so I felt pretty good at first. And honestly, I felt like I was pushing. I was trying to get a good time, and did green and yellow. And then for red, got up to, the top and started going that downhill. So it's 3.5 miles to the highest point. Mm-hmm. And then you start going down, and then you don't stop going down.
Yeah.
So the
for
full
3 miles.
I mean, it's 3 miles of downhill. Mm-hmm. And I've talked about how the downhill at Stratton Mountain for NORAM is hard. And it's so crazy steep, but it's a quarter of a mile.
Yeah.
And while this isn't crazy steep, it's 3 miles
long.
So, think about a normal, if you're going downhill, you're going to be going a little faster. So my normal 5K, if I'm pushing 23, 24 minutes at the best, which of course I'm not so crazy fast, but anyway, you're running for 24 minutes, and if you're sending it, if you're actually letting the gravity take your body, even though it's downhill, it's still a lot of work.
It's scary too.
24 minutes of full on, it. My first red loop, I probably 2 miles into that 3 miles, I was like, I've got to slow down because I'm wearing myself out going down this hill.
Yeah. It's
just too much.
It's a lot of impact on your knees and your legs. Yeah.
So it wore me out pretty good.
Yeah. It was fun.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to lie.
No,
it was really
good.
Fun. I really
I think I just pushed it too hard.
Yeah. I really like just letting gravity take you downhill and just it. So important to note on that fact is the condition of the trails. Weren't technical. They weren't rocky. It was more loose dirt.
Yeah.
Or sand almost in some places to where
yeah, I wouldn't call it sand.
Not necessarily as deep as sand, but there were definitely those places, not along the ridge line, but along the edge of the mountain where they had those caution signs because it was just a steep drop
right off,
right off the mountain. where the dirt was a little looser and thicker in those areas. So, not it was either hard packed or it was that loose dirt where your foot would just sink into the dirt and you wouldn't really get that energy return. And it made it a little bit more difficult.
It's funny how you didn't really notice it during the day, but at night you see all the dust. Yeah. So when somebody passes you, or you're catching up to somebody, it's just, you see it. It's just like, my brain the whole time, I'm like, should I be breathing through my nose right now? Am I just like sucking all this into my lungs?
Pretty much, yeah.
I let that person pass. Should I not? Should I just stay ahead of them? Yeah. Because now I'm seeing all this dust start kicking up.
Which was interesting because, like, I saw a lot of similarities between, like, the Ragnar community and the OCR community, and that, like, everybody was really out there to support each other. Yeah. You know, you had teams cheering people on that, you know, whatever, like, I stuck out my hand for high fives, like, for random people because, you know, I'm, like, wanting to cheer people on. But then, like, there were these other people, like this random woman I came across on my last yellow loop. And she passes me. She passes me and gets literally 2 steps in front of me and then stops and starts walking. And I'm like, what? Okay.
That is weird.
Yeah. And then, like, I kept her, she stayed pretty much in my eyesight the whole time. And then we start going downhill on the yellow loop and she has this thing wrapped around her knee and she starts like hobbling downhill. And she looks like she's struggling or she's hurt or something because she's like trying to like 1-foot it down the hill. She passed you up. And she passed me up. And I'm like trying to figure out if she's okay or if she's hurt. I'm like, are you okay? I'm like, do you need anything? She's like, do you need to pass me? I'm like, well, I mean, I was just trying to ask you if you were okay, but yeah, I'll pass you if you're offering for me to pass you. So
that definitely sounds like an outlier.
Yeah. Totally an outlier because like that was the first person I had ever encountered like that throughout the whole day. So whenever I was like, well, I was just asking if you were okay, but yeah, I'll pass you.
Yeah, that is nice. Obviously, there is differences between trail runners and obstacle course racers. Yeah. One of the biggest differences is that you see a lot more shirtless people at obstacle course races than you do.
You saw your wife's comment on
at trail races. Yeah. It really is. Like you go to, I mean, any trail race I've ever done, people are wearing singlets or sleeveless or somehow they're wearing long sleeve. I don't know. My body melts before, like, I can't wear that. I'll sweat too much. I don't know what it is. I honestly wonder, I did think about this today. Is it because trail runners are doing less upper body workouts? So they don't have this physique that they're proud to show off? Like, is that part of it? It could be.
There might be something to that. I don't know.
So yeah, there's now. Other than that, like, what are the real differences between trail racers and obstacle course races?
There's not a lot.
You do get a lot of that, like, positive vibe, camaraderie. Almost every single person you pass is going to say, "Good job, keep going, keep it up," that kind of stuff. So it is really cool.
And there was one point whenever I was on the green loop and my shoelaces they were doing something weird. So I was retying my shoelaces. So I stepped off the trail and I was retying my shoelaces. And this girl that was behind me that ended up passing me was like, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need help?" I'm like,
because you were tying your shoes?
Yeah, because I was like off the trail and I was like messing with my shoes. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm just retying my laces. But like at the same time, going back to the Human Potential Running Series race director, what in his runner's manuals before all the races he puts on, they're like, yeah, you're a trail racer and this is a race, but you're also like a human being. So like,
Nice.
if you see somebody pulled off the trail or, like just do the right thing and like check to make sure they're okay before you just like pass them up, kind of thing. Which I feel like, yeah, trail runners do a lot just because you're trying to look out for each other. Because you're all out there like on this trail and you don't know if you're going the right way. And,
Now, interestingly, I know when I did Ragnar in the past, you actually had to watch the safety video on site.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a big tent and you go inside of it and they would show it for a crowd of people. And, it talked about, you when you're catching up with somebody, you call on your left and you go, I don't think I heard a single person say on your left.
No.
And I was like, why has everybody forgotten that this is a thing?
I heard maybe a couple people do it. I know
I said it, but I don't, I swear I never heard a single person say it.
Yeah, I also saw a lot more people trail running wise because trail runners in general, you don't see them run with earbuds or music or anything like that. But I
had a lot of people.
Yeah, I saw either coming in with like headphones in or whatever. And
so you think it was just less knowledgeable crowd?
So. I think so. And like if they don't make that a priority for them to know, then they're not going
it wasn't
to
as
listen for it.
Right. You had to check in online and watch a video, but it wasn't. You weren't a captive audience. You had to go sit in this tent to watch this video.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like if you're a seasoned trail runner, or if you've at least run trails, even recreationally, to say, "Hey, I'm passing on your left," or "Hey, I'm passing on your right," whatever.
Well, people would say, "Excuse me," or
"Hey,
hey, I'm about to pass you."
Yeah, something.
But nobody ever said on your left.
Yeah.
Which is, I like on your left because... I had one or two people
do that, because then I know which way to move.
Was it me? I don't know. Yeah, no, you're right. Like, that's the great indicator about that part. It's like, it's traffic 101. Like, we're in America, you get on the right if you're slower. Some people, obviously, in traffic don't understand that concept, but... So, when you say... That's the best part, when you say on your left, and then they go...
Yeah.
And they go left.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
For me, I always felt like... Maybe, and once or twice this happened to me last night, when I heard somebody, and I could tell by the pace of their footsteps that they were definitely moving faster than me. So once I kind of like peeked behind me and saw where they were in relation to where I was, if they were close enough to pass me, I would just step off the trail and let them keep going.
A lot of people did that too.
Yeah.
I did notice that.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of people just like, they recognize you're coming and they pull over and let you go ahead and pass.
Yeah.
A lot of people, it's interesting when you get to somebody, you've got a very similar pace. Mm-hmm. And they'll say like, or somebody will pull over and then the other person will be like, no, you're good. I'm not passing you yet. So keep on going.
Me, I just hate people like following that close behind me. Even if we're running at the same pace.
You rather be by yourself or
I think I'd rather be chasing. I'd rather be chasing than hear the footsteps behind me. Although whenever I was coming around that loop back into the finish, I could hear this guy behind me and our footsteps were pretty much the same. So I'm like, I'm going to step it up a little bit because this guy's not passing me into the finish line. So so I kind of picked it up a little bit and I could hear he slowed down and then I just kept going into the finish. And I'm like, yeah.
That's funny. I had a guy that I was with and I was slightly behind him. I was like, I could easily just outpower this guy and pass him up. Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to do that. This is right at the finish.
Yeah. You don't want to be that guy that sprints.
Yeah. Not in the right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually got neck and neck with him and went into the finish with him together and kind of shared a moment with him. Oh man. So the day was hot.
Yeah.
And like I said, I ran, decently hard for those green, yellow, red.
Mm-hmm.
And then I finally had to slow down towards the end of the red because it was so steep. Not steep. It was just downhill for so long. Mm-hmm. And when I got done, I felt good. But then it didn't take long that I felt just not great.
Yeah.
I was like resting, and it's just like, I don't feel so good.
Yeah.
I never felt like I was sick, but I was just like, I could tell it was going that direction. And, from there on, it was like getting nighttime, and that temperature dropped quick. It's so wild, temperature-wise, in the cold. You're sitting around, even being in a sleeping bag, it was cold enough that even in the sleeping bag, it was like, I gotta make sure I got all the clothes and get comfortable. Yeah. Like, it shouldn't be this hard to stay warm, but it was.
Yeah.
And then you go out and run, and it's like...
Start shedding layers.
I went out for the runs I think I went out at like 9 and then at 2. And I wore, my regular shorts. I wore your little jacket and just a shirt and t-shirt underneath it. A tech t-shirt underneath it. Mm-hmm. And half a mile in, I had to take the jacket off. Like it was... I couldn't do it. It was just great. Oh, and I had gloves and a beanie. But it's just, so when you get started, and it's wild how much it changes when you run, your body warms up.
Yeah. Standing around was one thing.
Yeah.
It was super cold. And then once you got running, you warmed up so quickly.
Yeah.
Because my red loop, my last red loop was, that one in the middle of the night, and I had, that was whenever I had my Patagonia jacket, my cotton t-shirt, and then my tank top, and then my sports bra up underneath. Whereas like a few hours earlier, I was doing the red loop in just my sports bra and my shorts, and I'm like, I never run in my sports bra, so that's how hot it is right now. Yeah. I'm like, I need to shed a layer. And then, like, a few hours later, I was running in, like, 4 layers of clothing. But then, like, less than a mile in, I was like, I had to stop, take off my hydration pack, take off my jacket, take off the cotton t-shirt, take off the tank top, put the Patagonia jacket back on. So it's like...
So I found what worked for me is... Don't put the jacket on underneath my vest. Yeah. Instead, put the jacket on over the vest. Yeah. So I can take it off without having to deal with the vest. And that actually ended up working really well for me too. Just basically have everything, like, what am I going to run in, and then layer on top of that to be prepared for the start. Yeah. So I'm cold at the start. Get into it. Once I start to warm up, take the gloves, take the hat, take the jacket off, take all that off, and then I'm comfortable. Mm-hmm. So it was mid to low 40s, and I'm running in dry fit t-shirt and shorts, and it felt great.
And then you get back into the tent area and you're like putting on dry robes and all the layers and sweatpants and... Yeah,
that was interesting in itself. Just the concept of you get in and you've only got a certain amount of time before you lose that body heat. Yeah. So it's like, I got to get back to the tent and start getting things changed, or else it's gonna be very uncomfortable for a bit there.
Yeah. Yeah, I know once I was finished with the loop, I was heading straight to the tent, getting my layers on, and either bundling up inside the tent or like changing into dry clothing and going toward the fire.
Yeah, the fires in the festival area were really nice. They somehow kept those burning all night long, well into the next day.
Yep.
And big fires too.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah,
that was totally awesome. But that was the beauty of doing the night loops, or doing all of our second loops at night, was that we were all able to do them during the day and see them during the day, so we knew kind of what we were getting into at night.
Yeah. And to me, it was kind of like the why do I like, World's Toughest? Why do I like Conquer the Gauntlet's Continuum?
Yeah.
It's fun to do the loops and learn it.
Yeah.
As you go.
Yeah.
So, especially like the where the green loop and the red loop merge, because you did that one.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't do that one 4 times, you did it 8 times.
Yeah.
So just learning the loop is cool. And so you're talking about how somebody would say, make a comment like it was your first time out there.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, I've actually been out there.
Yeah.
Because even somebody else made a comment to me, and I was like, they said, "Is your second loop?" And I was saying, "Yeah, second time on this loop, like on green." But they didn't catch that part, so they,
Yeah, I had one guy on the yellow loop, on my last yellow loop, and I think I saw him hanging around our tent area, so I feel like he knew we were an ultra team because he was around our tent area, and we were our team kind of would start at the same time as his, because I would see him around, and he was coming up the yellow loop, and I was coming up the yellow loop for my second time, and he made a comment as he was running past me, and he was like, good job, runner. This is your last time on the yellow loop, right? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, this is the first person that acknowledged that. Yeah. Other than this one girl that was a spectator, I was coming in through the finish. She saw my blue bib, and she was like, yeah, go runner. And then she saw my blue bib, and she was like, yeah, ultra runner. And then she even started like cheering even louder. And she was like, yeah, crush it. I'm like, okay. So
that is
there was
crazy.
like 2 people.
I never noticed a single other person running.
You never noticed
I didn't know that the bibs were different at first. So, but I never noticed, and nobody ever said anything to me.
Yeah.
Noting that I was an ultra runner.
Yeah, because I didn't see that many blue bibs. I know Kathleen's husband, who was there kind of riding his bike around like the courses and stuff, said that he ran into a few ultra runners. There wasn't that many of them. Mm. There was one ultra team, though, that was just 2 people.
Oh, wow.
So there was just one ultra team that was just 2 people, and he by the time we were finished, he didn't know if they had already finished. Mm. I almost feel like it was the people behind us that had like weird random people coming in and out of their camp all night, because it didn't seem to be the same people all night. But I also didn't notice the ultra bibs. A lot of women with the ultra bibs, but a lot of ultra bibs in general I didn't see.
Yeah, crazy.
So it'll be interesting to see results.
Will they post results?
I think so. I mean, they have results for every other year.
Yeah.
I don't see why they wouldn't have results for this year. So.
And they did say that they something happened to apparently ultras get a different medal. Mm-hmm. So we actually got half of the regular medal. Yeah. And we're supposed to get those mailed in. So yeah. Not sure what those will be. Typically in the past, it's always been some sort of multi-tool or something that kind of, like when the year I did it, it was like a kind of like a spork type thing. Mm-hmm. And you take basically 8 slivers of metal and you put them all together and they say something across all of them.
Ours is a bottle opener.
Yeah, it's a weird bottle opener though. Yeah. It's a big square.
But there's
why would I use this big square for a bottle opener? I don't know. It's a weird shape for a bottle opener. Anyway.
Who knows? But it was fun. I'd do an ultra again, I think.
I did enjoy it. I'm glad that I felt bad enough after the red loop to slow down. Yeah. Because I enjoyed the last 3 loops a lot more, just taking my time instead of trying to push. And, this is something I've talked about. Like, I think my competitive side would love to really push really hard as possible and do some amazing things, but my body, Fortunately, I'm not the only person like this. Some other people deal with things too. You have to take what your body can handle, and my body can't handle pushing so hard that I get dehydrated. And so just going slower, I think, is good for me. And I really did enjoy the green, yellow, and red the second time more so than the first time, even though I was more wore out.
But looking at all of our times, all of us stayed.
Yeah, it wasn't a drastic difference.
It wasn't like I thought our night loops would be a little bit slower than our day loops, but
mine were, but it wasn't. But
it wasn't a
crazy.
Huge difference. Yeah, it wasn't a huge difference.
Like maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, like WTM, you see the progression.
Oh yeah.
These are night ops loops, and these, these are getting more into the day, and so our loops stayed pretty consistent. Even though we only had to run each loop twice, I think that was enough.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. By the time I was done, I was excited to be done.
Yeah. Which is crazy because 50K, we've both run 50Ks just straight on.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever felt this.
It was the daggone heat, man.
Yeah. I think it was.
I'd say it was a temperature swing, not just the heat.
But
like I liked running in the cold felt better, but dealing with the cold when you were not running was not fun.
Because your body's trying to make up.
And then running in the heat was not fun, but hanging out when it was warmer, just in the tent area, was nicer.
Yeah.
So it's just the swing was so crazy.
Which is weird because I'm sunburned, but it got down to 40 degrees last night, and I was wrapped up in a dry robe.
Yeah. And during the day, it was 75?
Yeah.
Come on.
That's so crazy. Weird. So weird. And the fact that there was no coverage and some of the loops were very much so pavement didn't help.
Yeah. Yeah. Ragnar was fun. I had a good time.
It's fun. Definitely a lot of fun. Kathleen kind of made me a little teary-eyed whenever she finished up her last loop. And she was like, "Yay, Anna, thank you for making me feel like an athlete again." I was like, "Oh."
Yeah,
and she gave me a big hug, and I was like, "Oh man," I was definitely a little watery-eyed as I was finishing up my last loop. I was like, "Oh, that was so sweet."
So Kathleen turned 50 on Friday.
Yes.
And so for her 50th birthday, she did the Ragnar Ultra. And
which she mentioned it to me later whenever you were on your loop. She was like, I forgot to mention this to Jason, but whenever you asked me to do Ragnar Ultra, I thought you made a typo and you meant Ultra. And you wanted me to do a Ragnar with the rest of your running
Ultra
shoe buddies.
Teams, yeah.
And whenever I went back and reread the message, and she was like, "Oh no, she means Ultra."
But she didn't want to tell us because she had already committed.
Yeah.
And so she didn't tell me until she was done.
Yeah.
She told me that.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I didn't want anybody to know because I didn't want y'all to think that I was sandbagging." And I was like, "What are you talking about? You were faster
the fastest one on the team."
So for her 50th birthday, so she's been doing this competitive stuff all of her life. I'm not quite 40 yet. Mm-hmm. You're not 40 yet. Mm-mm. So just we're doing all this competitive stuff, but at some point, you can do it forever for sure, but at some point you might move on to something else. So it was cool to see how she had been doing this for so long that she isn't really doing anything competitive now. Mm-hmm. And so for her to come back and do something like this where she can push herself, how many times did she push herself already in life? Yeah. And she just hadn't done it for a while, so to get to do it again was really cool. The
stories that she's told me, though, I just off the top of my head, she was traveling to this triathlon, and they were driving, and something happened to her bike, and so last minute, like 11th hour before the triathlon starts, she has to go rent a bike from a bike store.
Jeez.
Not even the bike that she was training on. And then like she ends up getting like second place in her age group or something crazy like that. Or like running, whenever, she lived in Africa, her and her husband lived in Africa for 6 months. And so she got to do the Mount Kilimanjaro marathon.
They did talk about that, yeah.
Yeah, with like all these fast Kenyan and Tanzanian and
that's right, Ben
runners.
was telling her.
Yeah.
So her husband's name was Ben, and both of them were just so excited to be there.
Yeah.
It was awesome because, I don't know, I mean, I guess we do enough of this stuff that we're just like,
so used
all right,
to it.
it's time, it's another race weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, we're excited, but like their excitement topped ours.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was really cool to see them, how excited they were for her to get to do that. Like, he was so supportive of all of us, but especially for her. So, yeah, he was telling the story about being doing a half marathon at Mount Kilimanjaro.
Mm-hmm. So he did the half marathon, and then there's also a marathon where you go up and then you go down. And so he was talking about watching all the, running with all the fastest runners in the world. You see them just bombing their way down whenever you're still working your way up.
Yeah.
And they're already like just like flying down the mountain.
And he's doing a half and they're doing a full.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's amazing, like the stories that she has, and like he had mentioned, I don't know if you had heard him mention it, like she hadn't competed in so long, like he felt like she needed it just for like her soul needed it, that's what she needed it to be, like, I don't know, feel fulfilled or something, not necessarily like her happiness, but like her happy place.
Yeah, it was good timing for her, I think.
Yeah.
She was pumped about being there.
Especially with everything, because I think she had mentioned she qualified for Boston last year, and then she had planned to go in 2020, but of course Boston never happened. And then, like, who knows if Boston is going to happen again this year. So she's like, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
So, yeah. She's amazing. She's a badass.
Yeah, and Jeff held his own. I mean,
especially with the asthma at altitude.
And he said he was getting some like stomach and side cramps and stuff.
Yeah.
And, all of us slowed down a little bit.
11-hour drive.
Maybe Kathleen barely, but but he definitely, he didn't complain. I had to ask him, how you feeling? Mm-hmm. He never complained about it himself. He never brought it up himself.
Yeah.
And he just stuck with it, and everybody, like, we never had a time where somebody came in from a loop and and the next person wasn't ready. Yeah. Like, we were, besides Kathleen making that one mistake, we were spot on the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was pretty awesome.
I feel like, though, they fixed that after those first people went out on that yellow loop.
So there was something different to it?
I think so, because I think there was a volunteer there, or there was an extra sign there or something. Because she mentioned something about there being signage where she took a wrong turn. And because the second time that she did it, she was like, I don't know how I missed that turn, because there was signage there. Because, I felt like the course was pretty well marked, because if part of the trail forked a little bit, immediately they had a wrong way sign. Yeah. And then they had the arrow signs showing you which way to go. So she said that the second time around, she was like, I don't know how I missed it, because I feel like there was like a whole bunch of, like, there was an extra sign somewhere that she just maybe, I don't know, they either added in or she must have missed like the first time. So in either case, she still finished 7 miles on that loop in the same time that we finished our 4.5.
Yeah, so we did 122 miles in 26 hours in 17 minutes, something like that. So it was a good time, a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
I feel like we should wrap this up before I fall asleep. If you do need to, I don't really know where to put the Inya in here because we've talked for over 2.5 hours about races. Like it's been, we haven't really gone off topic. We actually did a pretty good job of just covering what we talked to say what we're going to cover.
After 4 years of doing episodes, we finally stay on topic.
But if you do need some Inya, go look at the highlights for our Instagram. You have to look at the highlights because it's in there for the Ragnar. Yeah. Instagram has the little music that you can add, and apparently I guess Instagram's owned by Facebook, so Facebook's got access to a lot of stuff. And, so yeah, the Inya song's on there.
I feel like you should tack it on to the end.
Yes, I should. I don't know how to wrap this up.
It's like the end of an era.
We've been doing this for
crazy
4 years now, and it's not that we are like, I'm tired of doing this, and there's a little bit of that, but it's I feel like what I set out to accomplish, which was to create different conversations than what was already being had, has been done. Like what I set out to accomplish got done. Mm-hmm. And how many 2-person conversation style shows are there now?
Not many. Before
us, it was just Obstacle Dominator was the only one that I can think of that was not a different interview. It wasn't interview style.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you had, now they did interview people, but you had Ben Greenfield and Hunter McIntyre talking to each other. So they were the only one that I could think of that was like that.
And then it was Benny and Hunter.
Yeah. So then we did it, but now you've got Matt and Josh. You got,
even Kirk and Bracken.
Kirk and Bracken. The guy, Dave Claxton and his female co-host and his male co-host before that. Mm-hmm. So that's 4 examples right there already that are doing, and that's not including
still a thing.
Bro CR Supercast, same thing. So that's 6, and then you've got OCR Audio in the UK. So there's definitely the space that we look to fill has been filled. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we're saying, we won't be recording next week or the week after, this is a break. We're not looking to just shut down the whole OCR talk and make it not a thing anymore. But I don't know when we'll ever record again. So it could be sooner rather than we think right now, but it may not be. There's just no plan for it going forward other than to put our efforts into that live broadcast and stuff.
We're just leaving ourselves open for more opportunity down the road.
Yeah. So the thing is, I don't feel bad about leaving it as is because that space is filled.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening for 4 years.
I can't believe it's been 4 years.
It is weird.
It just feels like it was like yesterday.
2017?
17, yeah. 2017. That was the year.
While I did a bunch of races in 2015, 2016 was the year that I feel like I really broadened my horizon with the obstacle racing scene. 2016 was when I learned. Actually, 2015, the end of 2015 was when I learned about World's Toughest. And during 2016, I also learned about OCR Worlds. And And when the second I learned about both of those, I was like, I want to do both of those. And so that was 2016 was my year of, I'm going to be serious. I'm going to train hard. I want to try and compete at these races. Mm-hmm. And I did World's Toughest, and I got 50 miles, and I did OCR Worlds, and didn't fail any obstacles. Mm-hmm. And the next year is when it was like, all right. I mean, that was towards the end of... Was it beginning of that year? Shoot.
It was beginning of 2017, because I remember it was towards the beginning of that season.
Okay. Yeah, so it was like right after that. I was like...
And that was like my big traveling year.
Let's go.
Yeah. That was my big traveling year to where like I wanted to do all the Spartans and all the CCGs and all the races. And yeah, it was quite the expensive year for me.
Is that what you got to say, dog?
Yep. That was her commentary.
So we are going to call this, and, at some point, I'm going to put up this very long episode, and I do hope you enjoyed it. And there was no real rhyme or reason to this episode. We just wanted to cover what we have been doing lately and all the races, because there has been, those several, and we haven't gotten to it, and that's the way it's going to go. We're just going to not get to it anymore because we've got other focuses. So we're hoping to continue to make OCR better through the work we do with the OCR report, and particularly live streaming. But we're growing in the OCR report in all sorts of different ways. Mm-hmm. So thanks again. Anything else that you'd like to add?
I don't know. I feel like we should have highlights from all of our...
I'm way too tired to do that.
Yeah, I
know. Just for it to be on the record here, my watch, while I took naps in between laps, I think, my watch says I did not sleep last night at all. So...
It also said your training load was low or something.
That was weird. What is going on, Koros? My training load low after
26 hours of racing.
Okay. All right.
Thanks everybody for sticking with us throughout the years, and don't know when we'll talk to you again soon, but...
If you want more of this, just go to the OCR report.
Yeah.
That's where we'll be.
Yep.
Bye.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows, only time? And who can say if your love grows as your heart shows, only time? We gotta we gotta
Declan, you want to say hello?
No.
Bye.